It all starts with that old saying about wanting to be rich again, something the MC knows all too well. Right off the bat, Sang-yoon hit the ultimate jackpot by being born as the grandson of the Sunghyun Group's chairman, the biggest conglomerate in Korea. Talk about being born with a diamond spoon in your mouth. But the huge catch here is that he's the youngest son of the current vice chairman, making him way too famous across the whole country. Because of that, his insane wealth and absolute fame go hand in hand like two sides of a coin. You just can't have one without the other. With that in mind, he quickly cooked up the perfect master plan while the aptitude tests were being graded at school. The first step of his strategy is plain and simple: never ever show off any exceptional skills. If he looks too capable, he'll grab the company's attention and get dragged into a messy succession battle he wants zero part of. On the flip side, rule number 2 states he can't look like a total loser either. In his family, the whole fake it till you make it vibe simply does not fly. After all, his grandpa chairman shows zero mercy, ready to drop even his own flesh and blood if they can't handle the job. One single slip-up, and an heir could end up getting treated worse than a rookie intern. That cutthroat management philosophy is exactly what built the unforgiving corporate jungle the group is today. Keeping that in mind, his game plan is to be just bad enough to avoid being handed a subsidiary company to run. But he also doesn't want to be so terrible that he only gets a tiny consolation prize. His ultimate life goal, becoming a super-rich slacker. Interrupting his daydreams, the teacher calls for the whole class's attention. The educator announces that Sang-yoon snagged first place with 301 points on the test, asking for a round of applause. The teacher walks up full of confidence, guaranteeing that the kid's acceptance into the prestigious Hankook University is already in the bag. Next, he asks what major the heir plans to pursue, assuming the family already has everything mapped out. The MC plays dumb, pretending he isn't totally sure yet. The teacher suggests that business school would be a total breeze with that score, but the student drops a hint that he has a specific choice in mind. Without missing a beat, Sang-yoon drops the bombshell that he's applying to the law department. The educator is absolutely shook hearing such an unexpected choice. The whole classroom goes wild, with students whispering about the crazy thing their classmate just said. Watching the circus unfold, the heir laughs internally, totally expecting this reaction, while the teacher awkwardly tries to warn him that his score isn't high enough. To pass law at that institution, you need at least 320 points, and he purposely tanked his own score just to fail. The master plan to become a wealthy couch potato involved failing at Hankook and settling for a law degree at a way smaller college. Since Anseong University isn't too shabby, he figures the chairman wouldn't totally lose his marbles over the final result. So by getting an ambiguous score, his idea of failing on purpose would be flawless and get him off the hook from family duties. At least that's what he thought, until he opened the acceptance letter confirming he passed the exam. The MC just stares at the paper, completely frozen, trying to process how on earth that happened. Gripping the letter, he wonders what kind of wild miracle made him pass. The answer comes straight from the TV news, reporting that the early admission results are out. For the first time in 50 years of history, Hankook University's law department couldn't fill its recruitment quota. Because of that, the school announced that all applicants would be accepted, except those who scored under 100 points. The MC drops to his knees, feeling the crushing weight of his own failure. Grabbing his hair, he freaks out seeing his first genius plan going down the drain in the most pathetic way possible. Back at the family's massive mansion, the vibe was the complete opposite of the kid's misery. His grandpa lets out a monstrous belly laugh, absolutely thrilled. Meanwhile, Sang-yoon looks like his soul left his body, listening to the old man brag about how his shoulders are heavy with pride. The group's chairman tells the guests he was sick of other rich folks' arrogance, celebrating that his grandson didn't just get into Hankook, but went straight for law. The kid's dad, the current vice chairman, gives a polite chuckle, telling the old man not to overdo it. The man tries to play it humble, saying he's just speaking figuratively in front of the company. But the dad quickly joins the hype train, stating his son now has to live a long time and become a prosecutor general. The heir breaks into a cold sweat, panicking because they're mapping out his life when he never even dreamed of a career as a prosecutor. However, the grandpa cuts the chatter sharply, asking why his grandson should ever settle for a gig like that. The MC blinks, totally lost on where his family's train of thought is heading. The dad insists that if his son becomes a judge, the group will need to offer massive strategic support to help with the business. But the grandpa instantly shoots the idea down, telling his son to completely drop that nonsense about becoming a judge. The old man declares the boy is the pillar that will solidify the group's third generation, making it absurd to even consider him becoming a mere lawyer. His parents are in awe and thank him for the consideration, while the heir feels his will to live fade away as he becomes the center of all expectations. Changing the subject, the dad asks if the old man is heading out to the company, confirming he'll tag along. Before leaving, the chairman calmly gets his grandson's attention. He asks in a friendly way if the kid needs anything or wants some extra pocket cash. Sang-yoon quickly bows, politely declining the offer. The grandpa pats the young man's head, cheerfully commenting on how he gets more adorable by the day. Getting the head pat, the kid tenses up, just wanting the old man to turn off that suffocating spotlight. Lacking the guts to say what he really thinks, he just thanks him for the affection and asks to be excused. Walking through the garden, he is fully aware that one wrong word could turn his comfy life into dust. After all, the Sunghyun Group's chairman is the absolute ruler of the family, and has more than enough power to make that happen with a snap of his fingers. Far away, the patriarch's luxury car speeds down the highway. Sitting in the backseat, the grandpa breaks the silence to ask for his son's opinion. The vice chairman turns around confused, asking his dad to be more specific. Beating around the bush isn't his style. The old man clarifies he's talking about his youngest son, his precious grandson. Deep in thought, the dad replies that the boy is still just a kid, having barely turned 20. The chairman shoots a sharp look at his companion, asking if he seriously believes in that innocence. As the car reaches the corporate high-rises, the patriarch calls his son by his name in a much more serious tone. Picking the conversation back up, the grandpa asks what the heir thinks is the real reason they run a company. Staring at the road, the vice chairman guesses some nice-sounding options, like job creation and customer value. Chuckling at the naive answer, the old man asks if he also thinks it's for social contribution. Then he firmly shuts it all down, stating the only reason to run a business is to make bank, buying cheap and selling high. Getting back to the main point, the chairman reveals the kid is already putting that strategy to work like a master. Having analyzed the exam, he noticed his grandson took the test putting in the absolute bare minimum effort. In the old man's head, Sang-yoon perfectly calculated the minimum passing score and secured his spot strategically, acting like a true corporate shark. The dad tries to play it down, saying the kid just got lucky during the test. But the family leader ignores the excuse, guaranteeing that if that was pure luck, he could hand the entire group over to his grandson right this second. Shook by the bold statement, the vice chairman calls out to his dad. Arriving at the massive corporate building, the old man argues that having luck on that level is proof the kid can lead the company. Stepping out of the vehicle, the chairman drops some wisdom. 100 smart, hardworking people can never beat someone with insane luck. Walking ahead toward the entrance, he calls his son again with a bossy tone. Mind made up, he orders them to assign someone flexible and sharp to shadow his grandson. The vice chairman tries to argue, pointing out the boy isn't ready to work yet. But the old man ends the debate demanding obedience, stating that if the kid has any ambition, he'll find something to do on his own. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, the MC punches the wall out of pure frustration. With his hands on his head, he realizes he accidentally earned way too much street cred with the big boss of the group. Knowing his grandpa's ruthless personality, he knows this situation won't be treated as a joke. Remembering the speech about being the family pillar, the kid concludes his dream slacker life is totally ruined. Right then, his phone starts ringing off the hook, and he picks up with zero patience. Without much ceremony, he straight up asks who's bugging him on the other end of the line. The man politely introduces himself as Ju Yong-hoon, the head of the secretariat, taking the boy by surprise. The heir is super confused by the random call, since this boss is the grandpa's right-hand man and the only guy his dad openly respects. Trying to keep his cool, Sang-yoon greets him and asks what's up with the unexpected call. The head of the secretariat gets straight to the point. The chairman ordered the assignment of an exclusive secretary for the young master. Shook by the news, the kid can barely reply while the man lets him know he's already finalizing the hire. With a slightly amused tone, the staffer mentions he has one more message from the big boss. The call continues with the info that his grandpa wants to give his grandson a massive graduation gift. Hearing this, the MC freezes, repeating the word gift, trying to process the whole thing. The boss clarifies that the choice is totally up to him. The kid just has to decide and let them know so they can buy it. The man even reassures the heir, telling him he can take his time and pass the decision to the team later. Instantly, the kid's mind wanders, wondering if he should just demand a giant commercial building as a joke. Standing in the middle of his room holding the phone, he weighs the wild idea for a second. But logic kicks in and he quickly brushes that greedy thought away. Remembering the chairman's intimidating vibe, the MC quickly realizes this is definitely it. Panic sets in as he figures out that if he asks for something super pricey, his entire useless slacker act goes out the window. Hiding his stress, he tells the boss he needs more time to think about it. After hanging up, the kid concludes his new goal is to not look like a snob, while still lowering the old man's expectations. Meanwhile, at the family's massive traditional estate, the vibe is all about hyping up the kid's success. Gathered in a fancy room, the relatives take the chance to congratulate the heirs. The oldest uncle laughs, claiming Sang-yoon alone is worth more than all his useless kids combined. Soon, the second uncle joins the banter, asking why his brother is dragging his own kids into the chat. Calmly sipping tea, the aunt warns them to leave her youngest daughter out of that disappointment category. Changing the focus, she brings up cousin Tae-yoon in New York, complaining that he won't even pick up the phone. The oldest uncle tries to cover for his son, making up a story that the guy is just too busy hitting the books. Watching the drama, Sang-yoon knows full well his cousin actually spends all day partying and clubbing. He is 100% sure that if Grandpa finds out about this hidden wild side, it'll be game over for the guy. Right then, a staff member announces that the company chairman is about to enter the room. As soon as the door opens, the patriarch walks in, casually ordering everyone to sit back down. Taking the head of the table, the old man thanks the family for showing up on such short notice. Wasting no time, he makes it clear the only reason for the meetup is to celebrate his grandson's win. Feeling the heavy vibe, the kid quickly realizes this family dinner is also part of the test. Squeezing his hands under the table, he decides his best move is to act like none of this is a big deal. Turning his attention to the MC, the big boss calls him out directly in front of everyone. The chairman straight up asks if the head of the secretariat passed along his message earlier. Keeping an unreadable smile, the old man asks if the boy has made a choice regarding his admission gift. The uncles tense up, green with envy seeing the patriarch spoil just one of the grandkids like this. The young man gulps, totally remembering the agreement was to give his answer to the staff later. But feeling everyone's eyes on him, the boy confidently denies having any doubts. Knowing he can't dodge it anymore, he looks deep into his grandpa's eyes and confirms he has a wish. Curious about the bold attitude, the chairman leans back and tells him to spill it. Without batting an eye, the MC announces loud and clear that he wants an entire building in Gangnam. The whole table instantly goes into shock over the sheer audacity. The kid's dad's eyes go wide, sweating bullets over his own son's guts. A dark aura surrounds the vice chairman, unable to believe the brat had the nerve to ask for real estate in the priciest area. Keeping his posture flawless, Sang-yoon finishes by saying he wants a new college built for his university. Inside, the kid is having a blast, knowing the request is purely selfish but sounds incredibly noble to everyone else. In his own mental geography, the school is south of the river, so it technically counts as the Millionaire District. Hearing the explanation, the patriarch's eyes widen slightly, surprised by the reasoning. A smile of pure satisfaction forms on the old man's face as he processes his grandson's genius idea. The very next second, the fancy room is filled with the family leader's loud, proud, monstrous laughter. Unsure how to react to the boss's sudden good mood, the relatives just give nervous chuckles to play. Super hyped about the boy's academic ambition, the grandpa agrees to grant the wish on the spot. Cutting to the intimidating presidential office, the old man calls for his loyal head of the secretariat. The staffer answers right away, waiting for his boss's orders. Looking thoughtfully out the window, the patriarch asks what a regular kid that age usually wants for a gift. When the employee tries to talk about the heir, the old man cuts him off, clarifying he wants to know about average youths. The secretary explains that normal guys chase imported cars or designer clothes to flex their cash. Sitting in his majestic chair, the leader agrees that material things are the usual focus for young people. Resting his hand on his chin, the man ponders the fact that his grandson asked specifically for university infrastructure. With a sly gleam in his eye, the chairman spots the ulterior motives and wonders if the kid just played him. Shortly after, the papers announce a massive multi-million donation from the group's foundation to the university. Safe in his room, the MC smiles victoriously, totally believing he convinced his grandpa he has zero clue about the value of money. In his room, the MC reflects that at least he showed he has no concept of money, tying the score against his grandpa. Super confident in his upcoming defeat, Sang-yoon silently declares it's time to put Plan B into action ASAP. The brilliant idea now is to tank his own grades on purpose and show he simply can't adapt to college life. Holding the newspaper, the heir is 100% sure this new strategy is foolproof to crush any expectations for his future. Soon, someone calls from outside that the driver is waiting to take him to campus, and the kid agrees, saying he's on his way down. Hopping into the luxury ride, the passenger casually mentions to the staffer that he could have totally gone to freshman orientation by himself. The suit quickly counters, explaining that if the young man took public transit, he'd have to hike a terrible trail for over half an hour. Surprised by the tip, the student can't believe it, shocked as he recalls there's a station with the exact name of his new college. Keeping his eyes on the road, the driver clarifies that it's just a name for show and no sane college student actually uses that entrance. Hearing this, the freshman gets super confused by the guy's local knowledge and asks how he knows such a specific geographic detail. Catching his reflection in the rearview mirror, the young master connects the dots and nervously asks if the man also went to that school. Confirming his worst nightmare, the assistant Lee Baem-seok reveals he graduated from that exact department, making him technically the passenger's senior. Instantly, Sang-yoon remembers his grandpa's promise to assign an expert to guide him, and realizes the massive weight of this ambush. Sweating cold in the backseat, he silently panics thinking about the awful hurdles this cursed lineup will cause for his planned failure. Super politely, the professional finishes by saying the boss ordered him to fully help with any struggles the grandson might face in his studies. The employee even adds that he received strict orders from the patriarch to never let the kid's grades slip under any circumstances. Hearing that, the MC's world completely crashes as he realizes phase 2 of his incompetence project just went down the drain. In his mind, his ruthless grandpa appears shooting lasers from his eyes, threatening to demand perfect results since he provided the best tutor in the nation. Totally pale and drained, the heir suffers internally watching a supposedly flawless tactic get crushed in minutes. Standing in front of the Foundation's giant building, Sang-yoon feels the colossal weight of defeat crushing all his hopes of living in peace. An uncontrollable rage takes over the kid, screaming on the inside, unable to accept the ridiculous trap set by the veteran family leader. Shaking with pure frustration, the young man cries angry tears while his brain scrambles to justify how he got played so easily. Venting his brutal built-up stress, he violently punches an imaginary structure, feeling his own sanity crack along with the fake wall. Back in the car looking absolutely wrecked, the driver notices the guy's terrible state and worriedly asks if he's feeling sick. Hiding his deep agony, the passenger waves his hands frantically, promising he's fine and demanding they just hit the main road already. While the car continues its campus route, the college student decides he needs to craft an emergency plan at lightning speed. Far from the urban chaos, the family enjoys some quiet tea in the traditional garden, but one of the uncles is still salty about the kid's recent arrogance. The man rants bitterly that the rookie relative always kept too many secrets, inheriting that unbearable vibe straight from his late father. Relaxing and sipping his hot drink, the other relative avoids the drama and straight up asks what his brother finds so offensive about their young nephew. Annoyed by the cluelessness, the older guy emphasizes that it's terrifying for a quiet kid to invade the legal scene and demand giant real estate as a prize. Super irritated by the lack of awareness, he insults his chat partner, asking if he seriously needs to spell out the risks of that early rise to power. The strategist details that the brat wants to charm the intellectual elite right in his first semester, to build a private dominant faction within the group. Keeping an enviable chill, Wu Yi brushes off the conspiracy theory, reminding him that buttering up some immature freshman shouldn't cause this much panic. The gray-haired relative turns his face away in total disbelief, harshly asking why it's so hard to see the political threat. Jumping into the heated debate, the sophisticated aunt backs up the concern, pointing out that these seemingly innocent friendships dictate tomorrow's market rules. With polished speech, the woman makes a heavy comparison, saying a solid corporation always starts with hidden foundations long before the visible walls go up. Finding this meeting of conspiracy theorists hilarious, the friendlier brother mocks their overreaction about a plot of land that doesn't even have blueprints yet. He quickly takes a jab at the table's main hater, advising the guy to supervise his own household failures better before hunting down a lucky freshman. Striking a ruthless blow, the observer points his finger right in Seung-yi's face, clearly intending to humiliate his rival's unstable track record. Highly cynical and provocative, he drops the gossip that the offended guy's son was MIA again, causing endless headaches for the secretaries. Hearing his own blood's reputation attacked in public, the veteran stands up furious, promising to punish his bold brother's toxic tongue. Turning his back on the pathetic yelling match, the sarcastic guy waves his hand, dismissing the bad vibes, and announces his visit is over. The caring sister tries to cool the humiliated man down, asking him to forget the cheap shots and deal with the youngest kid's undeniable. Not wanting to breathe in that declared war zone, the elegant lady gracefully stands up and joins the exit before the fighting restarts. Left totally alone with his shame in the monumental yard, the debate loser clenches his fists, consumed by the humiliation of being shut down. Time flies and the highly anticipated New Year's Day dawns grandly over the traditional roofs of the multi-billion-dollar corporation's private fortress. Following the golden rules, the youngest granddaughter, dressed flawlessly, runs happily to deliver the calendar's first respectful greetings to her grumpy grandpa. The feared leader softens his harsh features to reward the childish charm with some cash, getting hyped applause from the lucky heiress. But the financial empire's famous holiday bash feels more like a military draft, where the entire elite must show up and swallow their pride. Lined up like useless recruits against the walls, the young guys suffer from boredom, cursing the crazy rule that drags even overseas residents back home. Cutting through the cowardly whispers, the highest authority in the room barks with a voice that tears the room, ordering every heir to hold their breath and listen up. With his face frozen in its usual lack of warmth, the master manager immediately invalidates any empty greetings and useless holiday motivational speeches. The unbeatable chairman declares that success doesn't fall into the laps of the weak waiting for miracles, commanding them to actively create fortunes and inspire the working masses. Cranking up the volume to scare the submissive crowd, the old man asks if there are any pathetic doubts left about the brutal philosophy laid down right then. Cornered by the killer energy, the successors shake off their laziness, desperately agreeing with the absolute sovereign's main command. Amidst the hostile vibe taking over the event, the oldest grandson tries to clear his dry throat, predicting the start of the dreaded January evaluations. Shattering everyone's fragile stability, the feared judge drops young Do-yoon's name like he's firing off a fatal court sentence. The chosen one acknowledges the call, choking slightly, and the old executioner orders him to step up to the front line to speak first. The interrogator makes sure to use the firstborn card to demand high-impact plans, pushing the inexperienced grandson to show off the year's revolutionary promises. Shaking like a scared prey and melting into sweat in front of the elite, the kid ruins his own shot by stuttering out some pathetic academic dedication goals. The tycoon's piercing gaze darkens at the mediocrity, and simply repeating basic study goals signals a crushing fail on the character test. The failure panics, trying to piece together a backup excuse to save himself, but the judge's raised hand cuts the verbal torture, killing the useless attempt. Calling the next victim to the firing squad, a terrified Jong-yoon steps up with red cheeks, totally ignoring that the moneymaker already blocks hesitant losers. The rookie plays it safe, stating that finishing his degree will let him snag some random corporate office job in the long run. Annoyed at dealing with another shrinking, complacent figure, the demanding grandpa shoos away the disposable trash and hunts for the family's third sheep. Watching his relatives get morally destroyed while his brain processes at light speed, the MC tallies up the sinking ship, fully believing he's in a different league. In the freshman's egocentric mind, the bizarre miracle of getting into the top tier of the legal world earned him a bank of praise impossible to burn through in one morning. Calculating his massive lead in the inheritance marathon, he figures he can strike the same insignificant pose as the losers without losing any real points. Suddenly swallowed by cruel reality, the snap of his own name throws the lazy guy's confident brain right back into the deadly claws of the live review. Taking his spotlight spot in the center of the loser's aisle, he hears the big boss surprisingly praise the speedy pace of the millionaire construction demanded earlier. Hiding his racing heartbeat, the kid nods along, confirming the dates, totally shocked that the conglomerate's ops team sorted it out in the blink of an eye. Without giving an inch of his authority, the interrogator ends the concrete talk and aims the main cannon, demanding the strategist's mysterious next life steps. Truly believing his rehearsed mediocre answer would get the spotlight off his back, the target masks his cosmic laziness by cooking up an absolutely silly statement. Blunt and superficial, the college student declares he'll use the cash and space to make casual friends and enjoy his time making the most of this phase. Instead of blowing up and cursing the lack of corporate backbone, the master manipulator smiles, encouraging the outside-the-box thinking, and demands the real goal behind this brilliant act. Keeping up the act, the MC explains he doesn't have money yet, so his only resource right now is people. Therefore, the young guy states he was lucky to get into Hankook University, a place packed with exceptional talent. He wraps up saying that making tons of friends, there is the best path forward in his current situation. Hearing that chill excuse, the grandpa's face twitches slightly. Instantly, one of the uncles loses it, screaming that the kid is soft and only cares about playing with his buddies. Another relative stands up furious, asking if a useless punk like him actually thinks he's good enough for the company. Showing zero mercy, the man tells his nephew to take that building and live off crumbs for the rest of his life. Watching the meltdown, Sang-yoon just waits for the patriarch to agree with the heavy insults. Then the old man's lips twitch slightly in the dead silence. To the student's total despair, the chairman flashes a huge smile and starts laughing. Super satisfied, the leader praises his grandson, calling him a brilliant, deep thinker. He quickly calls the head of the secretariat over to admire the freshman's genius mindset. Utterly shook by the positive reaction, the heir has no clue where his lazy guy plan failed. Ignoring the tension, the old man dismisses the angry relatives and orders everyone back to their seats. Watching his strategy crumble, the college kid decides he can't back down and take this L so easily. Clenching his fists, he decides to make a bold move before it's too late. With that in mind, the boy calls out to his grandpa in the middle of the room. The old man asks if the grandson has anything else to say now that he already laid out his plans. Without hesitating, the MC fires the question back, demanding to know what the patriarch's own master plan is. Instantly, the cousins' faces freeze in terror at the insane disrespect. The rest of the family also goes into shock, fearing the absolute worst. The chairman turns his head slowly, asking if he heard that right. Emitting a heavy aura, the old man asks if the kids seriously had the guts to demand answers from him. The vibe in the hall turns incredibly tense and dead silent after the direct hit. One of the uncles whispers in disbelief, thinking his nephew has totally lost his mind. The cousins whisper in fear about how the rookie dares to challenge the group's supreme authority. Sweating bullets, the vice chairman mutters his son's name, terrified of a brutal punishment. While everyone holds their breath, Sang-yoon prays this slip-up is enough to ruin his reputation. But feeling the pressure in the room, the freshman starts to sweat, wondering if he crossed the line with his trash talk. Breaking the deadly silence, the family leader lets out a heavy sigh. Defying all expectations, the chairman explodes into a monstrous laugh that echoes through the hall. The boy is left completely paralyzed, clueless as to how that insult turned into a joke. Finding the whole thing hilarious, the old man repeats that his grandson really wants to know his next moves. Chilling in his armchair, the leader comments that the time has come, and he figured this moment would arrive. In a great mood, the grandpa agrees to share all his future strategies with the young man. However, he warns he can't discuss it there, and the head of the secretariat will pick him up soon. Stunned by the invite to head to the company, the heir panics, realizing his plan totally backfired once again. Watching the favoritism, the oldest uncle's eyes burn with pure jealousy and rage. Unable to let it go, the man tries to interrupt, calling the patriarch father. With a simple wave of his hand, the chairman demands instant silence. Trying a loophole, the relative switches to his corporate title, his voice shaking. Furious at the interruption, the old man slams his chair, reminding them they are at home, and he should be called grandpa. Pushing his luck, the other uncle raises his hand, saying he's also super curious to hear the plans. The top boss's gaze darkens instantly, overflowing with annoyance toward his sons. Gritting his teeth, he threateningly asks what he just told them. Yelling, the patriarch reminds them you gotta take risks to reap rewards, something none of them did, stripping them of their right to have a say. Ruthless, he declares there is only one person worthy of hearing his corporate blueprints. Next, the leader points his finger straight at the rookie in the middle of the room. Hearing his name getting hyped up, the MC freezes, trying to figure out how his social suicide attempt turned into a promotion. Days later, the college kid gets a notice from the secretariat to show up for a meeting on the first Wednesday of the month. The staffer walking with him confirms this was an absolute, direct order from the big boss. Deep in thought, the boy figures his grandpa's response will probably dictate the whole corporation's direction for the year. Clenching his hand, he realizes he can't just cross his arms. He needs to prep so he doesn't get crushed. Determined, the heir calls out to assistant manager Lee, who is organizing books. The man turns around quickly, realizing an avalanche of work just dropped in his lap. No beating around the bush, Sang-yoon demands the current status, financial statements for the subsidiaries, and every project from the last decade. The freshman also demands he gather both the massive success stories and the group's biggest flops. Pulling a late night, the young guy knows he can try playing lazy at college, but he needs to be armed to the teeth for this clash of titans. In his head, he pictures himself stuttering and embarrassing himself in front of all the top-tier executives. With that, he visualizes his grandpa morphing into a terrifying demon and wrecking the whole building out of disappointment. Spooked by his own thoughts, the heir politely asks the employee to hand everything over by the weekend. The assistant confidently guarantees he'll pull an all-nighter if needed to make the paperwork flawless. Before leaving, the suit asks if the young master needs any other administrative favors. The freshman confirms he has one more thing and starts talking about next Friday. Adjusting his glasses with a smile, Lee announces he already scouted a great spot and booked the venue, shocking the kid with his insane efficiency. He explains he found a hall that isn't too flashy or too cheap, making it the ultimate hangout for college kids. Holding the clipboard, Sang-yoon reads the details and confirms there are 231 freshmen in the class. The staffer nods at the number but gets confused about why he asked that specific question. Straight up, the MC orders him to reserve spots at the event for every single student on that list. The assistant's eyes pop out, totally mind-blown by the sheer size of that sudden ambition. Freaking out, the man warns the cost will be astronomical, but the heir claps back saying money doesn't matter right now. Standing tall, the young guy argues that everyone at the university is his peer, and he plans to win every single one over. With no breaks, he orders the exact same setup for the business school and every other department sponsored by the family. He demands the employee rush to lock down the contracts before it's too late for the entrance ceremony. While the paperwork moves behind the scenes, a crazy buzz takes over the main courtyard on the big back-to-school day. While the paperwork moves behind the scenes, a crazy buzz takes over the main courtyard on the big day of the entrance ceremony. Walking through campus, the MC mentions to his assistant that the last few days have been super hectic. After all, dragging freshmen from 15 different colleges into a luxury hotel in Gangnam was way harder in practice. Backstage, manager Lee sweat buckets on the phone trying to pull off that ridiculous event. Crunching the numbers, the freshman figures he burned through the cash equivalent of about 5 or 6 luxury mansions just on this joke. Having dropped so much cash, he's positive his grandpa will be extremely disappointed with this reckless behavior. Right then, the staffer points to the main gates, letting him know the welcome gifts are already being handed out. The little souvenir is nothing less than a Swiss watch branded with the group's logo, handed to over 6,000 incoming students. Watching the crowd, the heir admits he completely drained his own savings from the past few years to fund this. His plan is to make the chairman see this ridiculous flex and write him off as just another flashy, spoiled playboy. But since he slapped the company logo on it and called it marketing, he figures he won't totally lose the old man's favor. Super stoked about his flawless trap, the young master turns to the assistant and asks if his parents have arrived yet. The suit confirms the vice chairman is coming straight from a meeting, and the kid asks if the big boss is showing up. Hearing the secretariat didn't send any notice, the MC flashes a smug smile, knowing his grandpa wouldn't come. Cheering on the inside, he celebrates that the old man's absence means the disappointment over the spending was a total success. Inside the giant auditorium, the announcer asks all students to grab a seat so the official ceremony can kick off. The assistant says he'll wait outside until the event wraps, and the heir nods as he sits down. On stage, the MC grabs the mic and announces a major update before starting the formalities. Building the suspense, the man reveals an ultra-rare VIP guest showed up to congratulate the newbies. The whole crowd erupts into curious applause, while the student wonders who this mystery VIP could be. But upon seeing the guest's face stepping up to the podium, the MC freezes, completely shook. To the kid's absolute horror, the guy taking the mic with a massive grin is none other than the feared Sunghyun Group chairman. The old man warmly greets everyone, explaining he's only there because his own grandson is studying right alongside them. Watching this surreal scene, the freshman goes into full panic mode, unable to believe the patriarch actually crashed the event. The next day, the tycoon's VIP appearance is plastered all over the newspapers, praising his support for the university. Alone in his room reading the article, the heir is completely clueless about his family's bizarre flex. Looking at the expensive watch on his wrist, he figures the old man knows about the blown cash and still decided to show his face. This sweet smiley vibe is the total opposite of the ruthless, terrifying boss he knows so well. Sensing danger, the young guy realizes something super sketchy is going on, and all his calculations just failed again. An analogy crosses his mind. Whoever climbs on the back of a moving tiger can't safely get off anymore. He figures that is exactly his current spot, trapped in the claws of expectations set by his own bloodline. His big dream was always to score a building and live easy, but now destiny is dragging him straight to the group's headquarters. Interrupting the heir's existential crisis, a few knocks on the door announce manager Lee's arrival. Inside the room, the kid slams a thick law book shut, officially calling it quits on his study session for the day. The staffer hypes up the young master's insane performance, promising he won't sweat a single college class. However, the suit adjusts his glasses and drops an important warning, making the student super curious about the heads-up. With a serious tone, he warns that the academic world is full of absolute monsters, and advises the kid to watch his back. Sang-yoon laughs on the inside, remembering the ceremony where all the freshmen just looked like a bunch of harmless nerds. Shattering the illusion, the tutor reminds him that these naive kids are the nation's intellectual elite, and the way they study is terrifying. Changing the subject fast, the assistant's analytical eye catches a very specific piece of material dumped on the desk. Seeing it's a theoretical book on semiconductors, he gets confused and asks why the heck that is there. Leaning back in his chair totally chill, the heir replies he's been focusing way too much on laws lately. Pointing to the stack of legal codes on the shelf, he confirms the foundation for his major is already solid. With a mischievous grin, the college kid argues there's no rule stopping a law student from learning engineering. Instantly, the assistant's eyes bug out in awe, asking the kid to confirm if he is actually being serious. Spinning in his chair, the MC suggests inviting the top-tier seniors, already working in the group, to give him private tutoring in other fields. The tutor bows his head, absorbing the impact of that bold idea, staying dead silent for a few seconds. Taking the opening, the kid keeps up his genius persona and tells the staffer not to doubt his judgment. With a firm, calculating look, he orders the man to immediately report this new ambition to the heads of the secretariat. In regular logic, whoever gets into med school learns to be a doctor, and whoever does engineering focuses only on that. Following that same track, law school exists exclusively to build dedicated lawyers and judges. So, a law student randomly trying to learn semiconductor development sounds like a ridiculous waste of time. The master plan behind this is to make his grandpa hear this nonsense and wipe out any positive vibes generated during back to school. Being a purely calculated move, he hopes the old man loses his patience and finally writes his grandson off as a scattered loser. However, the assistant looks up with an aura of pure admiration burning in his eyes, calling the young master with total reverence. The man fixes his posture, declaring he finally understands everything, leaving the freshman completely confused. He confesses that at first, he thought it was super weird for the kid to blow fortunes on parties instead of prepping for the monthly meeting. But after hearing how hyped the chairman was at the event, he deduced that impressing everyone was the ultimate goal all along. Sweating cold and understanding absolutely zero, the MC mentally repeats the word strategy, trying to process how the plan failed. With stars in his eyes, the employee concludes the heir's true vision is to conquer every academic field to charm the leader. Fired up, the staffer slaps the book and promises to set up the entire framework needed for this insane journey. The suit guarantees he will bring in the biggest experts from every sector in the group to be the kid's private tutors. Not even giving the student a chance to argue, he turns his back in a rush, announcing he's going headhunting for a tech master. With a grin, the tutor claims he'll do it, so the young man can absorb the content before the massive monthly board meeting. The door shuts, leaving the college kid alone in his chair, sinking into a deep, soul-crushing silence. Totally unresponsive, he stares into the void, realizing he just dug his own grave and scored even more work for himself. Meanwhile, outside, the dedicated assistant walks with wild energy, fueled by his boss's imaginary ambitions. Being just a mid-level guy in the giant corporate group, he saw this chance as the golden ticket of his life. Sitting in his cubicle in a massive office, the man grinds non-stop, drowning in endless stacks of paperwork. He meticulously scans the company records, hunting for the most qualified staff to build the tutor squad. Ever since he started serving the young master, his routine got flooded with mind-blowing and challenging experiences daily. Looking at the imposing corporate headquarters, the employee recalls what brought him to that ruthless environment. Even before getting hired, he was always a guy with massive ambition and an unquenchable thirst to win. After graduating from the prestigious Hankook, he bilaid on the bar exam, swearing to climb to the very top of the company's admin ladder. To make that dream real, he hustled inhumanly, working day and night to prove his worth to the directors. Looking back at his past, the assistant figures that by his second year everyone knew him as Employee of the Year, and he soon joined the core circle. With a firm handshake, he'd take warm greetings from the big-shot executives. That's when his talent caught the eye of the head of the secretariat, the chairman's right-hand man who hyped him up as a true corporate superstar. Stoked about moving up, rumors said he was next in line for the boss seat, living a flawless moment where he promised to always go hard. But that sweet illusion of a perfect career shattered out of nowhere. Utterly shook, the suit asked out loud if the order was really to babysit young Master Sang-yoon. With his back turned, the boss explained that due to their shared college background, no one was better suited for this unwanted mission, asking for his patience. The man made it clear this was a personal demand from the patriarch himself to keep an eye on the vice-chairman's third son. Hearing the order, Baem-seok thought that if the request didn't come from the very top, he'd find a way to dodge that bullet in a heartbeat. The assistant kept wondering why he got drafted to look after someone widely considered totally out of the group's succession line. Stressed out, he started questioning if he messed up somewhere and lost his clout with the board. The paranoia got so bad he imagined the company wanted to force him to quit, but he quickly realized that wasn't the case. His doubts totally vanished the second he discovered the kid's true worth and hidden genius. Seeing the law school acceptance letter, the tutor concluded the freshman was more dedicated to the succession than anyone else and was already proving his chops. In the deluded employee's head, the student was the exact right guy to sprint straight to the presidential office and take over everything. Admiring the picture frames on his desk, the employee reflects on his new, glorious mission. Fueled by motivation, he swears to dedicate his entire being and life to secure the young master's succession win. Gripping the frame tight, the man gears up to put the kid's advanced study plan into motion. Picking up the phone, he dials the president of the group's electronics division, calling for Lim Do-won. Wasting no time, the assistant officially introduces himself as a direct rep from the main secretariat. Over at the subsidiary building, the executive is confused by the random call and the invite for a quick meeting. Caught off guard by the rush, Lim's eyes widen as he asks if the meetup really needs to happen today. The home appliance market back then was ruled by two massive rival brands, leaving the family's branch stuck in a brutal third place. Making things worse, sales for the company's flagship TV tanked hard, while smaller brands were blowing up fast. In a flash, these market rookies blew past the group's products in electronic store displays. Consumed by rage, the division president saw this as an absolute humiliation, and knew he'd be ruined if the patriarch found out about the flop. So the dreaded monthly meeting next Wednesday, run by the big boss, felt more like an invite to his own funeral. Totally desperate and sweating in his chair, the veteran exec panicked, trying to find a way out of the crisis. Suddenly, the loud ring of the phone snaps the man out of his thoughts, and he picks it up on autopilot. On the other end, the suit's voice introduces himself again, leaving President Lim spooked by the contact from HQ. Still confused, the exec confirms it's HQ, and the tutor takes the chance to ask for a time to visit in person regarding some requests. Arriving at the fancy office, the assistant drips confidence as he greets the electronics division president. Lim politely asks his guest to sit, while mentally trying to guess what this meeting is really about. The secretariat rep drops a thick book on basic semiconductor theory onto the desk. The veteran eyes the technical title, and the suit confirms that's the main reason for their Keeping it totally professional, Bayam explains he came down specifically to make a request related to this material. He drops the news that the vice chairman's youngest son is super interested in studying this topic and needs some special help. The assistant asks him to draft some staff capable of explaining the theory perfectly, leaving the old man totally lost by the weird request. Sweating bullets, the exec gets paranoid, imagining this is a low-key order for him to join the vice chairman's faction. Analyzing the board, the manager remembers the vibe around the kid's dad has been super tense and different since last year. Since the feared family leader is already pushing his 70s, the succession war between the four siblings is totally blowing up. Because of this brawl, the division presidents play neutral, while fighting behind the scenes to pick the winning team. The man figures if the invite was direct, he'd decline instantly, but using the student as a bridge is a super safe bet. In his head, if the kid's dad loses the presidency fight, he can just say he was only doing an academic solid. However, if their squad wins the war, this little favor for the young guy's studies will become a massive lifeline for his job. Staring at the book cover, the old man decides to grab this political chance with everything he's got to save his own skin. Masking his intentions, he flashes a friendly smile and guarantees he'll find the absolute best experts to help the heir. Far from the corporate conspiracies, the MC wakes up in his luxury bed exactly at 4:30 in the morning. To keep his body sharp, he hits a light 30-minute walk around the neighborhood. Wrapping up the workout, the college kid sips his morning drink while devouring the daily news. This strict, productive routine is a habit he hasn't skipped a single day since middle school. Chilling with his coffee, he rhetorically asks why he grinds so hard for a life that should be on easy mode. The boy's focused look shows he has a very clear, specific goal behind all this military discipline. In his mind, the scary image of the family patriarch serves as the ultimate reminder that one wrong step equals game over. His master plan is to keep up this model student act only until he gets his hands on his dream millionaire building and becomes a quiet slacker. His thoughts get cut off by knocks on the door announcing Bayam arrival, and the young master tells him to come in. The tutor bursts into the room flexing way too much hype, wishing the student an energetic good morning. Pointing at his watch, the man warns they need to hustle, leaving the heir confused by all that early morning excitement. A bit later, the duo pulls up to the impressive secondary HQ of the electronics division in the Gangnam area. The second they step inside, President Lim bows super deep to show extreme respect, welcoming the VIP guest. Surprised by the hype welcome, the college kid asks what brought the division president himself down there. Lim claims he made sure to gather the best staff personally, but the kid thinks he should have just stayed out of it. Laughing it off, the exec promises not to get in the way and quickly orders the drafted pros to introduce themselves. The first guy bows his head with massive respect, revealing he's the longest-running member of the Semiconductor Study Club. Next, another pro introduces himself as the manager of Department 3, showing he's 100% ready to work. A general affairs assistant and a sales associate also put themselves at the young heir service. Returning the respect, the MC officially introduces himself, swearing it's an honor to meet the group's experts. However, the kid drops a heads-up that he has one tiny request before they kick off the real study session. He points out that the only goal here is to learn, asking them to ditch the family titles and treat him like an average student. Charmed by the guy's humility, the old president quickly agrees with his awesome attitude. Sang-yoon adds that being called young master makes him super uncomfortable in that corporate setting. With a chill expression, he asks everyone in the room to just call him by his actual name. Stuttering slightly, the exec okays the idea, internally praising the flawless, mature vibe the freshman brings to the table. Seizing the moment, the student suggests their first class should kick off with a quick pop quiz on basic theory. To avoid feeling the pressure of taking the test solo, he announces that all the other staff members present will take the exam right alongside him in that room. The manager running the test steps up and states the quiz has 10 questions with a 30-minute time limit. With that, Sang-yoon confidently grabs the papers and gives the green light to start the exam immediately. But the second his eyes hit the first page, the air completely freezes up. Staring at the questions made by the experts, the boy panics, realizing the content is way too easy. He quickly notices he accidentally overstudied way past what was needed, and now he has no clue what to do with this basic level stuff. Thinking fast, the freshman decides his best move is to bomb the questions on purpose to avoid drawing any unwanted heat. Sticking to the exact same strategy he used for his college entrance, his genius plan is to aim for a mediocre score and stay average. The test timer runs out, and the guy in charge announces he's going to reveal everyone's scores. No stalling, the employee decides to read the grades from worst to first place. Assistant Lee Bam-seok comes in dead last, laughing out of despair, admitting he understood zero since he's from a totally different field. The top spot goes to Manager Ko, who hits an insane 90 points on the test. Right behind him, the other two electronics division experts secure an 80 on the technical review, until the most hyped moment finally arrives, revealing the young master's performance. The test grader reads out loud that Sang-yoon managed to score 70 points total. The veterans try to comfort the kid, saying he did great for his first try, trying to soften the blow. Watching the test, President Lim lets out a sigh of relief and drops heavy praise on the heir's result. Checking the staff's reaction, the MC catches that look of pity on the older executive's face. However, that low-key disappointment is exactly what the freshman wanted all along by calculating those 70 points. The vibe in the room lightens up with the manager trying to break the ice, joking that studying really paid off. But the guy grading the test stares at the kid's paper, totally confused, noticing something incredibly weird. Mind blown, the employee announces the student actually got the 10th question right, a problem that even veterans mess up most of the time. Shock takes over the whole team as they press the guy, dying to know how he cracked that impossible math. Unable to believe their eyes, the experts lean over the desk, demanding an explanation for the logic he used. The boy blinks confused and asks why they're making such a big deal, since he thought that question was super easy. The room enters a state of collective denial, remembering that even the division's own staff failed that section. One of the pros asks if the student spent a ton of time prepping, but Sang-yoon replies he only read about it for a week. The grader can't accept that info and declares that level of genius in such a short time makes zero sense. Trying to downplay his own credit, the heir nervous laughs and swears he didn't do anything special to cause this freakout. Seeing President Lim glowing with pride, the MC panics, picturing this gossip reaching the patriarch's ears. The old exec lets out a genuine laugh, claiming the kid is a prodigy and didn't need any technical help after all. Taking advantage of the meetup, the veteran asks for permission to drop a super direct question, and the freshman gives him the floor. The branch leader asks why the guy picked semiconductors in a market packed with way more profitable sectors. Keeping his cool, Sang-yoon brilliantly lists 4 core features that define the future of technology. He explains the global trend points to electronic parts getting smaller, lighter, and insanely precise. The student points out the entire South Korean economy was built on heavy, traditional industries that have ruled the market so far. But he declares the country urgently needs a pivot, seeing this microscopic tech as the only path to catch up with global superpowers. The president fully grasps the kid's revolutionary vision, getting instant confirmation about the potential of that market. Faced with such clarity and ambition, the old executive is left speechless, reflecting on the weight of that deep business analysis. Getting his act together, the man praises the admirable logic, but notes that reality hits them with a 20-year tech delay barrier. Not trying to debate the obvious, the MC agrees with the manager, accepting that catching up to developed countries is an almost impossible dream. He fakes a retreat, claiming his sudden interest in the topic was just an excuse to try to wrap his head around this complex scene. The veteran assures he gets the heir's intentions and uses the friendly vibe to make a massive request. Acting all mysterious, the kid asks that everything that happened there be kept an absolute secret from his grandpa. Finding the situation funny, Lim swears he's famous in the company for never leaking intel and promises to take this study session to his grave. Far away, the vibe gets heavy in the main office, where the old chairman reveals he lied to the kid about agreeing to the pact of silence. The division president bows respectfully and says goodbye to the family's great leader, fulfilling his role as a loyal snitch. Right after spilling all the tea on the kid's insane performance, the exec leaves the boss's office feeling like his mission is complete. Left completely alone in his office, the ruthless group overlord bursts into a monstrous laugh of pure satisfaction. The old man hypes up his grandson's genius to the head of the secretariat, finding it incredible how the brat purposefully failed the easy questions to play dumb. Trying to be the voice of reason, the trusted staffer argues that maybe it was just a massive stroke of luck. The tycoon shakes his head, admitting he'd buy that theory if the story was about any of his other useless heirs. Putting his foot down, the grandpa declares Sang-yoon doesn't rely on luck and used pure strategy to try and play everyone except him. Pumped by this discovery, the leader already starts plotting his next move for the dreaded monthly board meeting. The secretary gets spooked by the hype and asks if he should summon the student to give a speech in front of all the execs. Staring at the view outside, the patriarch confirms the order full of expectations, guaranteeing the event will be unforgettable. The old man laughs, picturing the absolute chaos the freshman is going to cause in the company's stiff structure with his revolutionary ideas. Meanwhile, the next morning, the alarm goes off early, and the heir's hand quickly kills the noise to start his brutal routine. Stretching in bed, the college kid mentally complains that today's schedule is even more suffocating than usual. Already waiting outside, the dedicated assistant greets the young master looking sharp and ready to grind. Inside the car, the MC reads the papers, super annoyed he has to crash a massive corporate meeting before hitting his college classes. However, he decided to switch things up last minute and ordered the driver to detour to a totally different spot. Pulled up in front of an old warehouse, the tutor is sketched out by the meetup spot, but the student just tells him to head inside. The duo walks through the double doors of the abandoned spot, expecting to find a dirty, forgotten dump. But the heir's jaw drops instantly when he sees the totally renovated setup inside that mystery building. The interior is insanely modern and packed with people, making the freshman admit he totally misjudged the place by its busted exterior. Soon the kid spots his contact at an isolated table, and the suit says he'll stay on standby waiting for orders. The man politely introduces himself as reporter Won Dongshik from the Dongxian paper, taking a seat at the rich kid's invite. The journalist freezes up trying to be formal, but the MC kills the awkward vibe, telling him to just use his name without the fluff. Suspicious, one guesses the kid wouldn't give away a free interview, but the guy deflects, claiming he's doing it for the freshman. Finding the excuse funny, the reporter states that billionaire family members only talk to the press for two very obvious reasons. Talking with his hands, he explains the elite only hit up the papers to hype a massive project or to ruin a major rival. The pro asks for absolute honesty, but the student keeps up the act, claiming he's just a young guy wanting to chat about college life. Keeping his edge, the interviewer agrees on the young part, but doesn't forget to point out he's also a billionaire. No beating around the bush, the man declares the public loves reading about filthy rich, genius kids, and that's exactly what he writes. Taking a big sip of hot coffee, the MC thinks over those words and realizes he picked the perfect guy for his mission. Sipping his coffee calmly, the MC points out that if he weren't a loaded heir, he'd never be sitting there doing an interview. The reporter quickly notes he's a law student, and the kid agrees, saying there's a specific reason he called the press. Pointing at the basic semiconductor theory book on the table, the man comments that it's a super weird read for a future lawyer. Surprised by the topic choice, Dongshik totally gets that the student's real game is to casually leak what he's studying. Piecing it together, the journalist figures an article on this would act as a red alert that the family group is planning to dive into the semiconductor biz. In his view, the company execs would be fuming, believing the kid leaked crucial intel to the media like a total reckless amateur. Even though leaking corporate plans sounds like a risky play, the interviewer notices the situation isn't exactly what it seems. Cool as a cucumber, the college kid explains he just has to defend himself by claiming he has zero influence over the group's main strategy. The flawless plan is to use his just a freshman status to dodge the blame, giving the reporter total freedom to write whatever he wants. Seeing the guy's guts, the man warns he's going to regret this, reminding him that journalists usually don't go easy on anyone. Setting his cup down, the heir admits he's fully aware that news of a young master studying this topic is going to cause a massive uproar. Keeping his sharp stance, Sang-yoon fires back, guaranteeing he only agreed to this meetup exactly because of the guest's investigative hustle. Faced with so much chill calculation, the journalist stays quiet, trying to absorb the kid's insane level of manipulation. Looking at his own notes, Dongshik admits he came there not expecting much, but ended up meeting someone insanely interesting. Accepting the L in the mental chess game, the reporter acknowledges the kid isn't just there to drop a silly interview about getting into college. The media pro notes they both have very clear interests in this chat and asks how they should move forward with the deal. The proposed dynamic is simple and direct. The college guy supplies the backstory, while the paper prints the exact article he wants. Extending a friendly hand, the MC makes the classic trade of favors official. Thinking it over for a sec, the reporter weighs the risks and rewards of this random alliance. A handshake seals the deal between them, with the heir hyping up the quick, smart choice of his new partner. Confident in his own clout, Dongshik guarantees that having a journalist in his corner will be super comforting for the young master. While the plan runs wild in the streets, the dreaded monthly meeting day finally arrives at the conglomerate's massive HQ. A swarm of suited execs takes over the building's entrance, all stressed out about facing the family's almighty boss. Walking through the luxury hallways toward the boardroom, you can feel the absolute tension in the air. Adjusting his suit, the freshman knows full well that every word spoken in there will dictate the rest of his life. In his head, there are only two ways this goes. Option 1, he gets dragged into the company's top management against his will. On the flip side, the second and glorious option is simply inheriting some commercial buildings in a rich area and living easy forever. The massive problem is that the guy making the call is his ruthless patriarch, who will closely judge the kid's every move. Standing before the giant table packed with the group's top directors, the student feels the crushing weight of this final exam on his future. Stepping up to the oppressive room, the college kid bows politely to show respect to the powerful leaders. Hiding his internal panic, the boy introduces himself formally, announcing he'll be sitting in on today's monthly meeting. Keeping a humble vibe, he states he hopes to learn a ton from the work of all the leaders in the room. Confused by the broken protocol, one of the female directors whispers, asking what an inexperienced freshman is doing at the main board meeting. With no answers, another executive just stares at the scene, trying to decode the real reason behind this weird visit. Breaking the ice, the president of the construction division stands up friendly-like and asks if the young master still remembers him. The MC recognizes him instantly as Go Muyol, confirming he'd never forget such an important guy. Pleased by the shout-out, the man bows his head, proudly thanking the heir for the respect. Taking the chance to flex his hustle, the exec announces that the university library the kid demanded will be finished soon, with the team going all in. Across the table, an older director finds it hilarious, commenting it's unbelievable the guy actually showed up to face the big bosses. The side chatter gets brutally cut off when the secretary announces the arrival of the grand chairman and orders everyone to stand. Instantly, the sound of scraping chairs fills the room as the corporate elite snap into a stance of respect. Following the synced move, the freshman lines up with his uncles, waiting for the top authority to walk in. With heavy steps and stiff posture, the kid's grandpa invades the room, dryly asking if everyone is doing well. The entire board bows at a perfect angle of absolute respect, shouting a unified greeting to the big boss. Feeling the crushing pressure in his chest, Sang-yoon starts sweating bullets in front of that terrifying flex of authority. Taking his spot at the top of the food chain, the old man sits down and cracks open the financial reports with the coldness of a judge. Without making a peep, the country's top leaders settle into their chairs, waiting for the evaluations to begin. Firing the first shot, the patriarch calls out President Muyol directly, who jumps out of his chair ready for action. Super tense, the construction division leader stands at attention for the main boss. The old man points out the sector's performance was trash at the end of last year, but notes a suspicious improvement and demands answers about the new contracts. Shaking with nerves, the man confesses apartment sales flatlined, forcing the team to hunt for an emergency backup plan elsewhere. Having zero patience for speeches, the tycoon demands to know exactly what strategy was used to dodge the crisis. The exec explains the university library build acted as a showcase, pulling in million-dollar requests from multiple other schools thanks to the team's speed. Glaring intensely at the employee, the grandpa concludes the division bilaid on their core market and steered off the set path. Trying to defend his call, Muyol argues the route doesn't matter as long as the financial target gets hit in the end. The leader accepts the excuse but takes a jab, reminding him the current profit is still nowhere near the yearly goal. Keeping his tough tone, the old man orders the division to grind non-stop to actually cross the finish line for real. Relieved he didn't get chewed out worse, the construction boss bows, swearing to keep total focus on the profits. Switching targets fast, the evaluator calls the guy in charge of commerce, who takes the hit feeling the tension spike. The interrogation rolls on with a direct hit about the deals stuck in the Middle East, leaving the new target panic flipping through reports. The commerce director drops his head in defeat, sincerely apologizing for the struggles with international negotiations. He tries to chill everyone out, guaranteeing the deal is in its final stages and swearing he's confident they'll deliver the contract next month. Annoyed by the empty excuse, the patriarch crushes the guy's hope, asking what the point of confidence is without actual results. Unable to clap back at the boss's hard truth, the man shrinks into his chair, taking the commercial. The tycoon makes it crystal clear to the whole room he doesn't buy into cute feelings, declaring that if progress isn't visible, it doesn't exist. Watching the corporate nightmare unfold, the kid hears the old man demand that next time they bring real results instead of excuses. Without giving the room a second to breathe, the ruthless leader aims his sights straight at the petrochemical division. The exec running the sector jumps up instantly, confirming he's there and taking the same heat for results. Just like his coworker, the manager sweats cold and begs for more time until the next meeting to try and bring a save. Totally losing his cool, the grandpa slams the table and screams for the department store division. The MC's aunt panics, trying to explain that government meddling in luxury sales tanked the market, accidentally calling the old man dad in a risky slip-up. The leader's veins pop from pure rage as he yells that there's no family ties in here, demanding to only be addressed as chairman. Hit by the massive disrespect, the woman freezes in fear, feeling the weight of her own mistake crash down on her shoulders. Trembling before his authority, she listens to the man scream, asking if every exec in this corporation has lost their mind. Keeping up the ruthless review, the big boss locks his heavy crosshairs straight onto the electronics division. Calling the next target, the leader demands the attention of the exec running the electronics sector. The old man shoots a piercing glare at the employee, warning him he better not disappoint him either. Shaken by the pressure, President Lim remembers the law freshman is the youngest son of the vice chairman. In his head, the fact the kid is studying semiconductors in his division carries a massive amount of weight. The veteran thinks about the young guy's surprise appearance at this crucial monthly meeting. Noticing how tense the other heirs are, he is absolutely certain the succession war has already kicked off. With that in mind, the suited man decides this is the exact moment to pick a side in the brawl. Believing the patriarch has a hidden agenda to favor the freshman, he announces he has an urgent matter to share before the report. Without hesitating, the tycoon gives the guy the green light to speak up immediately. So the executive gathers his courage and announces to the whole room that the boss's grandson is in the building. He spills that the kid spent the last few days grinding hard with the tech squad, leaving the MC totally panicked by the snitching. Instead of acting surprised, the grandpa just dryly confirms the info and tells him to keep the report moving. Then the manager suggests the young master must have something to say about the division, asking permission to hear his take first. The big boss agrees instantly, catching the student completely off guard. Making things way worse for the kid, the feared leader calls his grandson's name loud and clear, suddenly showing off a great mood. Feeling the weight of the call-out, the college kid jumps up quickly to follow the order. Meanwhile, the boy's aunt tries to pressure him, demanding he get straight to the point and spit out whatever is on his mind. The chairman asks in a friendly way what the guy managed to figure out during his visit to the electronics sector. With that, the heir mentions the company is hunting for a new sector to shake up the market, and the old man tells him to keep going. No stalling, the student suggests the group drop massive bags into creating semiconductors. Right then, a silence loaded with pure shock takes over the boardroom. The uncle's eyes bug out, totally mind-blown by the absolute audacity of the pitch. Internally, the freshman celebrates the overall confusion, fully aware this was exactly his goal from day one. He figures the panic on the electronics division president's face has got to be the best reaction of all right now. But the kid loses his cool and gets totally confused when he glances over. Instead of freaking out over the risk, the executive is radiating insane pride, leaving the young guy clueless. The scene of his bold semiconductor pitch replays in the student's head as he tries to process the glitch. He remembers being absolutely sure he was going to destroy the old electronics manager's composure. But staring at that satisfied face again, he freaks out internally, trying to decode why the guy is so hyped. Breaking the tense vibe, the family patriarch starts laughing out loud from pure satisfaction. The big boss's booming laugh echoes through the room, spooking the execs inside. Super hyped, the old man calls for his loyal head of the secretariat, who answers the call right away. The leader asks if the employee paid attention to the innovative pitch, getting a yes in return. Finding the boldness hilarious, the grandpa hypes the idea while the heir stands there lost by the warm welcome. Next, the tycoon shifts his focus back to the college kid, who replies instantly, still a bit stiff. Dripping with approval, the patriarch gives deep thanks for the awesome suggestion, shocking the kid with the praise. The old man points out that all the family relatives are sitting right in that very room. He emphasizes that not a single one of those veteran leaders had the guts to pitch something so vital so clearly. With that, the chairman backs the grandson's analysis, admitting the current division is weak and getting crushed by the competition. Then he drops the bomb that he also already saw the semiconductor market as the only drastic way out to save the company. Totally stunned by the hype, the MC finds out his grandpa was already planning the exact same tech investment. Pissed off by where the chat is going, one of the uncles shoots out of his chair ready to protest. At the same time, President Lim nods proudly, annoying the student with that unshakable confidence. The relative calls out to the leader loudly to grab attention, and the old man asks what he has to say. Desperate, the guy rants that the semiconductor field requires insanely advanced tech, warning the startup cost would be astronomical. The executive insists this risky bet could literally mean the complete ruin of the whole family conglomerate. Boiling with hate over the cowardice, the tycoon tells his son to spit out whatever else he wants to say. Slamming his fist violently on the table, the old man yells that fearing risks will only make the company slowly rot away into nothing. Even cornered, the man claps back, claiming that taking on an impossible challenge would destroy their business future instead of saving it. Screaming, the chairman asks how his son dares to call it a failure before they even try. Faced with this ruthless fury, the kid's uncle stutters, totally terrified by the pressure. Showing no mercy, the leader exposes that the young college kid dove deep into technical studies, hitting a knowledge level that the actual employees envy. Hearing that exaggerated myth about his skills, the freshman freezes, trying to figure out where that urban legend even came from. Then the grandpa fully humiliates the director, asking why he only focuses on the chance of dying instead of fighting to survive in the market. He asks if a grown man isn't ashamed of giving up so easily on a project that a 20-year-old student is already facing head-on. Forcing total submission, the boss asks if the relative has any more useless excuses, but the exec just sits back down in defeat. Turning his cutting glare to the aunt, the patriarch demands to know if the rest of the family wants to complain too, getting nothing but dead silence. Raising his voice, the great leader dares anyone in that room to try and stop the corporation's rise to the top of the nation. The entire corporate elite gulps, keeping a vibe of pure terror in front of the crushing authority. With eyes burning with ambition, the old man doubles down on his absolute desire to wipe out rival brands no matter the cost. Wrapping up the monthly torture, the whole board bows, showing massive gratitude for the boss's work. Before leaving, the tycoon grabs his grandson's attention again in the middle of the room. With an intimidating tone, the grandpa announces they're having dinner together because they have some crucial private matters to discuss. Knowing there's no running away, the college kid accepts the invite while keeping his manners flawless. But the heir's face loses all its color, feeling absolute terror take over his body at this dangerous setup. Later, inside an insanely fancy restaurant, the patriarch breaks the silence, ordering the kid to make a choice right now. Sitting face to face with the ruthless leader, the student asks, confused, what he's supposed to choose in this situation. The old man gets straight to the point, skipping the pleasantries, and demands the grandson pick between the US or Japan immediately. Masking his nerves, Sang-yoon claims he doesn't get the point of that random question. Internally, the freshman realizes right away his grandpa is asking him to pick the source for their new project's tech transfer. He knows full well that only those two global superpowers have the setups needed to pump out such complex circuits. Trying to dodge, the guy mentions he's just a student, not an executive, but the old man tells him to drop the act. Spooked, the MC stutters, while the chairman confidently states he already knows all about his manipulative little moves. The leader reveals he found out his grandson called a financial reporter to purposefully leak the intel about his tech studies. Realizing the head of the secretariat himself did the digging and snitched to his grandpa, the heir bitterly concludes he walked into a flawless trap from day one. Flashing back to that fateful meeting, the MC thinks about how his grandpa reacted to his pitch. In the kid's head, the old man was just happily backing his crazy semiconductor idea. But reality knocks and he freaks out internally, realizing absolutely nothing went according to plan. Breaking the silence, the chairman asks if he shouldn't drop a harsh lesson on his reckless grandson. The old man flashes a menacing look, leaving the college kid shrinking back and sweating cold. Casually sipping his drink, the patriarch demands an answer on the country choice. Out of patience, he orders the boy to decide right this second, reinforcing there are zero other options. Far away, the family's massive mansion rests under the quiet night. In the huge living room, the vice chairman sits on the couch waiting anxiously. Super tense, the kid's dad thinks about this dangerous private dinner with the group leader. Stressed out, the man wonders if his son is handling the heat okay. Then he flashbacks to his own first executive meeting, filled with judging eyes and endless gossip. Back then, the patriarch's total control stopped him from acting like a real father. But his chest tightens, deeply regretting not dropping his title to protect his boy. Interrupting his thoughts, an employee mentions that the tech ideas pitched by the kid are stuck in his head. Getting home after the nightmare, the heir lets his dad know he finally made it back. The vice chairman asks if the dinner went well, getting a yes in return. Now seated, the man mentions hearing about the bold pitch at the meeting. He asks if his son played the press to pressure the boss, and the boy confesses that's how things played out. The dad reveals the leader demanded the kid take a leave of absence from college at the end of the school year. The order is to send a squad overseas for training, and the student has to tag along. Worried about the future, the man asks if the guy already picked a destination. Keeping his cool, the MC confirms the choice has already been made. With serious confidence, he announces he'll be heading to the US for his study trip. A brief, heavy silence takes over the living room. Trying to break the ice, the freshman shyly asks if the older man has eaten dinner yet. Totally awkward, the vice chairman quickly says yes, and tells his son to head upstairs to his room. Following orders, the kid says goodnight and leaves the area. Walking up the stairs, Sang-yoon quickly figures out the man stayed up hungry waiting for him this whole time. Touched by this quiet, fatherly move, the student feels a genuine sense of comfort. Far away, cousin Do-yoon answers the phone, pissed off about some gossip from Singapore. In his messy room, he complains that the rookie is trying to flex way too hard in front of their grandpa. Chatting with Tae-yoon, he vents about the kid's arrogant vibe during the New Year greetings. But the guy in New York couldn't care less, and tells his relative to deal with it himself. Chilling on the couch, he sarcastically notes the other guy shouldn't talk like that since he's the older brother. Tae-yoon dumps the job of putting the freshman in line right onto the family's first. Annoyed by the demand, Do-yoon fires back that nobody respects him as the true main heir anyway. Changing the topic, the New Yorker announces he's hitting the town to party and hangs up. The young guy laughs, finding it super hypocritical getting lectured by someone so reckless. Never missing a beat, he claps back, bringing up the scandals the other guy caused with women back in Korea. Consumed by rage after hearing the truth, the exiled guy brutally cuts the call. In a fit of fury, he smashes the phone on the floor, cursing his damn cousin. Standing by the window, the failed heir takes a deep breath, trying to hold back his own hate. Staring at the quiet street, he grumbles in disgust about how that peaceful place makes him sick. Thrown on his bed, the guy curses his own incompetence for getting rejected from every American college. Grabbing his own face, Do-yoon keeps dwelling on the freshman's audacity in front of the boss. Jealousy eats him alive as he realizes the rookie has become the center of attention lately. He perfectly remembers the cousin was just an average high schooler until he became the chairman's golden boy. Bitter, he remembers the crazy request for $1 million library that was greenlit on the spot. In the hater's mind, the grandpa appears laughing like a buddy with his new favorite. Playing the comparison game, the firstborn remembers his only request was a luxury house and 2 imported rides. However, that material demand never got a single nod of approval from the tycoon. Instead, his trips back to Korea always ended in humiliating lectures. The patriarch used to trash him while praising the brainpower of the law student who only pulls top grades. Crying out of pure frustration, the young guy asks why he gets rejected so hard even though he's the oldest. The rage builds up and he clenches his fist, feeling the heavy burden of his own failure. Sunken in his bed feeling depressed, he curses this totally unfair world. Paranoid, the guy concludes the family's golden boy is hiding some really dirty secret. Exhausted from overthinking, the exile tries to brush it off, believing nothing matters anymore. Time passes, and a bright day dawns over the main building of the electronics division. Stepping into the massive corporate office, the student gets a warm welcome from President Lim. The team board shows the official org chart for the new task force dedicated to semiconductors. The kid notices he got officially hired as a mere intern, just to check the boxes for the American trip. Already in the conference room, the old exec calls everyone to take their designated seats. Chilling in his chair, the heir ignores the likely nepotism hire whispers, locking onto his own plan. His genius logic says that more work equals more mistakes, destroying any hope for future success. Kicking off the meeting, the director hands down the order to hunt for foreign companies for the tech transfer. One analyst suggests a famous corporation, but the squad quickly shoots it down due to commercial conflicts of interest. Surprised by the next pitch, the president asks why they're trying to hit up the world's biggest computer maker. The employee explains that this American giant is insanely paranoid after some recent Japanese corporate espionage. Because of that scandal, Asian corporations have zero shot at closing a deal. Watching the debate, the freshman panics, realizing he missed his window to pitch that terrible idea himself. Passing the mic, old Lim stares at the kid, waiting for a brilliant take. The other staffers also pressure him, totally believing the prodigy intern holds the perfect answer. Sweating cold under the anxious stares, the MC scrambles to invent an even worse guess just to fail on purpose. Making things worse, the MC suggests hitting up 2 massive American companies that focus purely on manufacturing parts. A manager quickly agrees, noting that market rivals also locked in deals with those exact types of factories. Taking the opening, the freshman drops the perfect bait, suggesting the division do the exact opposite of their competitors. Manager so looks completely lost by the idea and asks what the kid means by that. The heir explains they should ignore the factories and go straight for the research institute that actually created the core tech. Keeping the act going, he argues that securing the original tech is way more urgent than focusing on mass production. Internally, the guy is absolutely certain he just pitched a completely insane plan that is impossible to pull off. The manager instantly fires back that the biggest telecom lab in America would never partner with them. Leaning back in his chair, the employee declares that scoring a deal on that level would be a near-impossible grind for the company. Hearing that, Sang-yoon cheers inside, because that instant rejection was exactly what he wanted to hear. But the joy is short-lived when the boss stands up hyped, showering the intern's genius perspective with praise. President Lim claims that if the young guy takes charge of the negotiation himself, the project's success is a lock. Riding the wave, the old man asks the team's thoughts on following the kid's pitch down to the letter. Instantly, the whole room erupts into applause and cheers, hyping up the heir's name. The college kid goes into a full meltdown, realizing in horror that the squad wants to dump all the responsibility on his shoulders. Dragging the plan down further, another staffer praises the kid's business vision, claiming the chairman's bloodline is just on another level. Holding his head in despair, the student finally gets that his grandpa set up this transfer knowing this exact thing would happen. Totally defeated at the table, he listens to his teammates call him with insane enthusiasm. The employee gives him a thumbs up with a look full of conviction, swearing everything is going to work out in the end. Changing focus, someone in the room asks why the freshman picked that specific lab. Manager So jumps up hyped, explaining that the mastermind behind that institution's cutting-edge tech is a South Korean researcher named Cho Young-di. The heir raises his hand, wanting to cut off this crazy storyline they're making up about him. However, President Lim asks why the rival brands didn't try hitting up this scientist earlier. The team quickly agrees there must be a huge reason for that lack of contact from other companies. Snatching the opportunity, the MC points out that this is exactly the massive flaw in the operation. In his mind, things are still under control, because the researcher rejecting them will guarantee the perfect failure. But one of the guys ruins everything, claiming he's totally sure the young master already saw these hurdles coming. Completely deluded, the division boss suggests everyone put their faith in the intern's negotiation skills. The whole room falls into a collective trip of blind trust, while the kid freaks out over how it got to this point. With his fate sealed, he bitterly realizes his chill trip to America just turned into an official corporate mission. Taking a deep breath, the college kid drafts a new plan and figures that just getting rejected by the scientist will solve the problem. Picturing the researcher as a strict guy, he's positive the no will be quick and inevitable. Right then, the manager stands up, swearing total confidence in the young team leader's abilities. With a confident smile, the MC promises to deliver results, knowing that sky-high expectations lead to even bigger letdowns. The old exec tears up from emotion, thanking the heavens for trusting the chairman's grandson's talent. Playing the perfect professional, the freshman humbly asks for the team's mentorship to turn this crisis into an opportunity. Far away, a quiet night falls over a luxury house located in New Jersey, USA. In the living room, a man on the phone declares he won't take the job without solid guarantees for basic research. Refusing to budge on his conditions, he politely hangs up the device. This is Dr. Cho Young-di, the famous head of the American lab, who sighs tired of empty corporate promises. He remembers recently getting massive offers from South Korean companies promising presidency roles. But the scientist always counters the offers by asking what the actual budget for fundamental research will be. The companies always dodge the question, claiming the market demands focus on immediate mass production instead of deep studies. The researcher knows full well his home country still lacks the financial backbone to fund such advanced tech. But staring at the lit fireplace, he deeply regrets this reality, since his ultimate dream was to lead this project the right way. To the researcher, securing the foundation of knowledge is the most crucial pillar of any major tech project. He firmly believes the base needs to be unshakable so the future can be reached safely. Thinking about this, a recent offer from foreign corporation JATC seemed like the most solid and logical move for his career. The flawless pitch offered a director spot in an American lab and a budget in the billions of dollars. The massive moral dilemma is that it's a Japanese company, reopening old historical wounds for his country. Sitting next to the phone, the scientist sighs, hoping some South Korean corp will step up with decent working conditions. Instantly, the phone rings and he picks up feeling bummed, expecting it to be just another one of those empty offers. On the other end of the line, the MC introduces himself super politely as the rep for Sunghyun's task force. Without giving him time to chat, the doctor loses his patience and rudely announces he has zero interest in the offer. Silence takes over the researcher's room after the harsh rejection. But the kid just casually acknowledges the no and accepts the decision without even trying to argue. The college guy Chillai says he's going to hang up, leaving the scientist completely confused by such a quick surrender. The call drops immediately, leaving only the sound of a dead line echoing in the American office. Back at company HQ, the freshman hands the phone to manager So, hiding a smile of pure satisfaction. Faking disappointment, the intern reports the target showed no interest, leaving the staff completely shook by the speedrun failure. Acting his heart out, the heir rubs his forehead, mourning the flop and taking the blame for his lack of skills. The guy keeps the act going, apologizing to manager So for letting down the team that trusted him so much. Trying to salvage the situation, one of the female employees suggests they fly to America and do a formal presentation. The rest of the squad instantly backs the idea, keeping their unbreakable faith that the college kid can flip the script. Manager So agrees and begs the kid to try convincing the scientist just one more time. Seeing his dropout plan under threat, the MC confronts his coworker, reminding him that the whole operation was under his command. Pressured, the man scratches his head, suggesting maybe a second call would be better than just sitting around waiting. Refusing to back down, the student grabs the employee's hands and stares him dead in the eyes, demanding to know if he really trusts his leadership. The young master argues that pushing too hard now would just make things awkward, recommending the team stay patient so they don't wreck everything. Totally overpowered by the heir's smooth talk, the veteran caves and agrees to just monitor the target from a distance. Turning his face with a devilish grin, Sang-yoon celebrates internally for manipulating the squad so flawlessly. In his head, the employee was dead right, because flying overseas would be the logical move for someone who actually wanted to close the deal. But since winning was never on the table, he killed the negotiation with a single call just to pretend he tried. Alone in the room, the intern flashes a dark, purely calculated look, declaring that absolute failure was always his one and only goal. Meanwhile, the early morning stays quiet at the researcher's isolated house on the other side of the world, completely oblivious to all this sabotage. Meanwhile, in the American house, Dr. Cho Youngdi stares at the phone, completely unable to grasp what just happened. Holding the device, he tries to process the shock of such a sudden and blunt rejection. The scientist thinks he should be furious about the lack of manners, but surprisingly, he doesn't feel angry at all. Looking back, the researcher realizes South Korean companies always bowed down and promised him the world. But the second he brought up focusing on basic research, all the suits would instantly scowl, proving they were totally fake. Putting the phone back on the hook, the man concludes the mystery rep was entirely different from the rest. In the researcher's mind, that decisive, confident attitude feels a lot like the practical American way of doing business. Intrigued by the kid, he decides he needs to deep dive into the Sunghyun Group's proposal. A few days roll by, and the vibe seems chill at the Semiconductor Task Force's temporary office. The freshman works peacefully at his desk, fully believing his failure plan was a total home run. But the peace shatters when manager Lee Baeum-seok bursts through the door, running and screaming for the young master in a panic. The MC checks his attitude, demanding to be called by his company title, and the employee quickly apologizes for the rush. Flexing a contagious hype, the assistant announces he brings amazing news for the team. Hearing this, the college kid spins his chair, totally confused by the sudden uproar. Sensing danger approaching, the boy quickly deduces that amazing news for the company means an absolute disaster for him. Catching his breath, the employee reveals that Dr. Cho himself just called the office. The whole squad jumps out of their chairs in shock when the manager announces the scientist is ready to sign a deal with them. Instantly, the freshman's soul leaves his body as he realizes his self-sabotage attempt had the exact opposite effect. The room turns into a literal party, with the veterans celebrating and giving all the credit for this impossible win to the intern. One of the female staffers hypes the kid up with crazy energy, claiming he's the bright future of that division. Swept up by the hype, the team members thank him for his flawless leadership and celebrate the corporate miracle. Wiping away tears of pure emotion, Assistant Lee praises the college guy's hard grind, while the kid stays frozen, unable to react. The heir freaks out internally, having no clue how the researcher accepted an offer that was never actually made. However, hunting for a sliver of hope in the tragedy, Sang-yoon asks what insane demands the genius brought to the table. Scanning his notes, the manager explains the target wants to set up a research lab exclusively focused on semiconductors. Trying to hide his panic, the student asks if there are any other tricky details in this negotiation. The suited man gulps and reveals the doctor demanded a massive annual budget and a ridiculous guarantee of investment for a full 10 years. Faced with such insane numbers, the MC loses his cool and lets out a gasp of surprise. But the very next second he crosses his arms, flashing a wildly confident smile, promising to accept everything and take the blame. The plan to fail sparks back to life in the kid's mind, hyped to see a chance to burn millions of the company's dollars on a deal his grandpa is going to hate. In the heir's selfish imagination, That contract is the perfect golden ticket to cause a monumental financial dent in the corporation's vault for 10 long years. Meanwhile, at the rival Yungseng Group HQ, Vice Chairman Park Do-won slams the table, shook by the news that the doctor picked the competition. The assistant tries to chill everyone out, explaining the talks were positive, but the deal hasn't been greenlit by the rival board yet. Consumed by annoyance, President Park Baeum-sik sarcastically asks if his son actually thinks they still have a shot at bringing the scientist over. Losing his patience, the old man punches the presidential desk, furious over the confirmation that the genius is actually going to work for Sunghyun. Desperate, the vice chairman asks about the talks with American partner Bikron, who only agreed to supply the tech under abusive terms. The exec complains this deal is a total scam, where the Korean company does all the heavy lifting while the Americans take the profits through royalties. With a bruised ego, the Yungseng patriarch grinds his teeth, bitter with regret over missing out on such a golden opportunity. He perfectly remembers the day he shot down the researchers' demands, knowing the board of directors only cares about fast, easy cash. Trying to wrap his head around his own flop, the old leader asks how the rival managed to convince the scientist to take the job. The employee bows his head and drops the bomb that the director running the op was the rival vice chairman's youngest son, the freshman Sang-yoon. Instantly, the president remembers this is the same kid who got into law school and became the old enemy's pride and joy. Mind blown by the audacity, the Yungseng patriarch realizes the young guy is already actively playing in the family's billion-dollar sandbox. The assistant adds that corporate espionage confirmed the heir is an exceptional talent, studying engineering while majoring in law. Rubbing his temples, the rival exec struggles to process how a mere rookie freshman managed to recruit the biggest tech mastermind on the market. Making a scene in the office, the Yungseng leader suddenly summons his own son. No beating around the bush, the old man confirms his grandson also goes to Hankook, enrolled in the sociology department since last year. Staring at the kid's academic file, the tycoon asks if there's any reason his own flesh and blood can't pull off the same brilliant stunt as the rival family. With a look packed with ambition and jealousy, the president suggests setting up a desk at the company for his grandson ASAP. The vice chairman takes the order right away, swearing the boy is capable and won't get left behind in this corporate war disguised as college life. Closing his eyes, the old leader burns the rival freshman's name into his memory, fully aware this kid just became a real threat to the market. Cutting to the sunny campus of Hankook University, the inevitable midterm season finally rolls around. Super hyped in front of the car, Assistant Lee pumps his fists, sending good vibes and rooting for his boss to crush the exams. The student is totally lost when he is handed a heavy notebook, packed with neat notes and summaries of every single subject. Super proud, the suited employee reveals he pulled an all-nighter putting together that review guide for the staffer swears the kid has more than enough talent to graduate top of the class, and the college guy nods, sweating cold over that insane pressure. Walking down the busy campus paths, the young master faces the weight of his first massive official test since stepping foot in college. Sipping his iced coffee, he mentally recites the golden rule of his master plan: getting good grades is key. However, this academic goodness means hitting an absurdly mediocre score, calculated purely to dodge getting embarrassingly kicked out of the school. The heir remembers using his poor assistant as a guinea pig the night before to measure the exact difficulty level of the test during a mock exam. In a quick flashback to the study room, the heir flips through books, patiently waiting for his private test to be graded. The staffer's red pen circles a massive number 9 at the top of the mock test answer sheet. Manager Lee celebrates the brilliant score of 95 points, blown away that his boss missed only one single question. Hyping the prodigy, the tutor points out the test had complex problems that even graduated lawyers would struggle to solve. Staring at the page, the freshman remembers he purposely tanked problem number 9, trying not to raise suspicion that the test felt way too easy. Snapping back to reality, his strategy for the real exams is to spot those same high-level questions and fail every single one. The MC's imagination projects his grandpa's monstrous rage, humiliating the flop of a grandson who wasted $1 million library with such pathetic grades. Tastes like incoming defeat, and the young guy licks his lips, anticipating the glory of being permanently banned from the family business. Joy takes over the student, who starts laughing like an evil villain right in the middle of the street, freaking out his loyal sidekick. Cutting the laughs, the freshman calls the assistant with a sudden, bossy, and determined vibe. Wasting no time, the college kid orders the man to hunt down the best traditional clinic in the city and order a batch of memory tonics. Totally caught off guard, the employee blinks, confused as to why he's randomly asking for study meds out of nowhere. Cranking up the absurdity, the heir demands he buy enough boxes to supply every single freshman at the university. Flashing a dark, villainous smile packed with fake motives, He argues that all his peers deserve to be at peak brainpower for the finals. Truly buying into the young master's kindness, the dedicated assistant cries, clutching his glasses, blinded by the glow of that extreme fake goodness. In the assistant's deluded mind, the heir sprouts shiny wings and leads the freshman like a literal saving deity. The employee confidently claims this noble move will win over the hearts of every student, thanks to the blessing of the memory tonic. Awkward about the hype, the freshman just scratches his cheek, confirming that is basically the gist of it. Throwing an energetic salute, Lee promises to scour every traditional clinic in town to get the mission done right now. With a loud door slam, the college kid is left alone in the room, praying his self-sabotage plan finally pulls through. Time flies as the batches of meds are handed out, and intense study days take over the route. In the classroom, the vibe is heavy with all the students buried in their books, doing last-minute reviews. The sound of the doorknob turning slices through the room's tense silence. Soon, the professor walks into the packed auditorium with a strict posture, checking if all the students are present. Without stalling, the educator announces he's handing out the exam sheets and starting the test right away. He demands everyone settle down and leave only their writing gear and the penal code on their desks. Then the heir flashes a confident smile, ready to execute his strategy of purposely bombing the hard questions. But the second his eyes scan the first page, the kid lets out a confused mumble. Cold sweat drips down his face as he notices something is completely off script. Totally panicked, Sang-yoon grips his pen, shaking as he realizes the test is insanely difficult. Staring at the paper, he suffers because he studied so hard that even this complex exam feels ridiculously easy to solve. The guy's sharp logic spots the right answer instantly, making it impossible to fail naturally. Frustrated by his own massive brain, the freshman curses the ridiculous mess he got himself into. But a brilliant idea suddenly flashes in his mind. Determined to sink his grade, the student decides to just skip the entire multiple-choice section and leave it completely blank. However, turning in a blank test might look like an act of rebellion and draw unwanted heat from the board. To get around that, he decides to focus only on the essay questions and burn all his time on them, using the ran-out-of-time excuse as the perfect cover. A week goes by, and the news that the university president wants an urgent meeting reaches the top of the corporation. In the luxury office, the head of the secretariat reports the random visit focused specifically on the young master. The kid's grandpa flashes a satisfied smile, guessing this contact must be about something really good. The executive agrees it will be a private chat, figuring it's a parent-teacher meeting to praise the guy's grades. Hyped about the prospect, the ruthless leader asks how they should handle the school's invite. The secretary suggests throwing a nice dinner with the educator and prepping the gifts the boss usually sends. Far from HQ, the college kid chills in his room, celebrating the arrival of his midterm report card. Holding the grades, he cheers over the 0 in multiple choice and 50 in the essay, certain this mediocrity will finally push his grandpa away for good. During dinner at the mansion, the vice chairman regrets not overhearing the chat between the university and the board. The dad mentions the kid seems to be struggling in class and points out the blank test as an absolute disgrace. In the man's view, the patriarch definitely got embarrassed finding out his grandson's skills are just a total sham. Accepting the flop, he plans to secure a basic diploma and a small building for the freshman to live in obscurity. Up in the room, the phone rings and the MC picks up, waiting to catch the dream lecture from the family leader. The unmistakable tone on the other end makes the guy swallow hard, confirming it is indeed his grand. The tycoon calls his grandson by his name super dryly, and the boy answers right away. The old man declares he is deeply disappointed with how the exam was handled, filling the student's heart with joy. In his mind, victory is locked in, picturing the chairman screaming his lungs out in frustration over the awful report card. Wearing his loser mask, Sang-yoon humbly apologizes, hand over his face, faking sadness. He cries fake tears, saying he feels like he's in a spot he doesn't deserve, but his grandpa quickly tells him to shut his mouth. The tone of the call flips when the leader repeats exactly what the university president said. To the college kid's shock, the educator claimed the essay answers weren't freshman level, but rather the work of a legal prodigy. Totally lost, the heir blinks, clueless as to how his genius plan went sideways again. Making it worse, the grandpa asks in awe how the kid found time to hit that academic level while working at the company. The intern tries to stutter out a lame excuse, feeling his world crash down around him. Screaming, the patriarch crushes any dreams, swearing he will never allow a brain like that to be wasted in the legal field. The boy's hope drops dead, crying in despair on the floor thinking about the dream consolation building he just lost. The old man keeps the pressure on, asking if the semiconductor project means nothing or if it was just a stunt to kiss up. Gripping the phone tight, the executive acts offended, asking if the kid planned to ditch the company and leave him to carry all the weight alone. The MC tries to picture a future working as a judge or prosecutor far away from there, but that door is already shut. Sobbing in regret, he rushes to guarantee he has zero interest in the courtroom scene. Calming down, the grandpa smiles proudly, claiming he had already figured out the kid's true intentions from the start. The leader mentions the educator suspected the student left the easy ones blank on purpose, so his peers could get the scholarships. Letting out a laugh, he confesses he almost died of embarrassment seeing the whole university hyping up the... Flashing back to the business meeting, the old man scowls in anger, recalling how many times he had to deny the kid's transfer. Furious, the tycoon yells that his grandson must stay locked in on the corporation no matter the cost. Threatening to throw a rage fit, he demands blind obedience and forbids the student from ever repeating that judicial nonsense. Too weak to fight that corporate bulldozer, Sang-yoon accepts the orders with his head down, the rest of his soul leaving his body. Super satisfied with the submission, the grandpa wishes him a good day and hangs up in a refreshed mood. The device hits the hook with a dull thud, ending the call. In the quiet room, the young master stares at the wall, trying to process the humiliation of his strategic flop. Leaning on the desk with heavy shoulders, he lets out a sigh loaded with regret. The bold move to turn in a half-finished test proved to be an unprecedented disaster. Instead of causing disappointment, he ended up becoming the perfect prey for the biggest power manipulators. The plan to fly under the radar failed miserably right at the first hurdle. With a dark look, he analyzes how every piece on his board turned against him. The professor's insistence on recognizing that insane talent sealed the freshman's fate. Right after midterms, the massive university library he demanded opened up to huge success. Riding the wave of his grandson's clout, the grandpa dropped generous donations and got honored with an honorary doctorate from the school. Meanwhile, the courtyard rumors about the genius heir's flawless essay score blew entirely out of proportion. One student questions the contradiction, trying to figure out why someone so smart would zero out the first half of the test. In the student's twisted logic, the rich kid left the questions blank just so he wouldn't steal scholarships from those who actually needed them. Adding the family donations, the majestic building, and the boxes of memory tonic, the college kid's image turned into an untouchable legend. Haunted by his own accidental success, Sang-yoon panics seeing the whole class worshipping him like a literal saint in the hallway. Haunted by his own accidental success, the freshman can't catch a break, getting stalked by professors and even the university president everywhere he goes. The academic vibe turned into a living hell where he can barely breathe, all thanks to that cursed test that turned him into an untouchable fake genius. Making it worse, his grandpa bagged a prestigious honorary degree from the school, glowing with pride over the shout-out. In the student's mind, this is all part of the educator's dirty scheme to trap him in the legal field forever with zero chance of escape. Consumed by the daily stress, the heir asks himself in frustration why people won't just leave him alone to live in the shadows. With no clear way out, he decides to ditch this unbearable college routine for a bit to focus on a way more urgent corporate event. The next day starts with a foreign plane landing at the international airport, signaling the arrival of the feared Dr. Cho Young-di. In the arrivals hall, the speakers tell passengers flying in from New Jersey to grab their bags carefully. Waiting patiently near the gate, Assistant Lee Bam-seok holds a low-key welcome sign for the veteran researcher. Spotting something weird in the schedule, the suit calls the young master and asks a question about the day's game plan. Worried about the target's health, the employee asks if the itinerary isn't way too packed for someone who just got off a flight. The manager friendly suggests the scientist should just chill at the hotel today, since he came from super far away and crossed the ocean. Cold and calculating, the MC claps back, saying the old guy had plenty of time to rest on the flight and doesn't need any more slacking off. He declares the researcher has to grind hard to justify the fortune they dropped on him, revealing he built an exhausting schedule on purpose just to annoy him. The student's genius idea is to drag the man straight to the facilities, zero fancy events, with only a regular staffer there to greet him. In the boy's imagination, the total lack of hospitality will make the doctor snap, and see him as a complete tyrant who works his staff to the bone. The plan is for the old guy to get super pissed at the weak welcome, realizing he didn't come back to Korea just to be treated like a pawn. Flashing an entirely evil look, the heir mentally celebrates that pathetic reception paired with an inhumane work schedule. He is absolutely positive there is no better strategy in the world to make the tech genius bail on the contract and run for the hills. Cutting off his evil thoughts, the assistant excitedly announces the scientist is finally walking out the main gate. The staffer quickly catches the newcomer's attention with a ton of politeness and respect to guide his first steps in the country. Waving welcomingly, Lee points out the exact path for the target to meet them in the nearly empty lobby. The freshman steps up, formally thanking the old man for enduring such a long, draining trip. Wearing his pro-executive mask, the young master introduces himself officially, mentioning they had a quick chat on the phone before. The two exchange a firm handshake to lock in their first face-to-face after that weird international deal. The scientist introduces himself, correcting his name to the Korean version, while the kid congratulates him on his permanent return home. Noticing the vibe is way too quiet, the doctor gets confused and asks if there really isn't anyone else from the board there. Coldly confirming the suspicion, the MC makes an excuse that they skipped the welcome party simply because they are super short on time. Acting like a ruthless boss, the college kid orders the old man to hand his bags to the assistant so they can start moving right now. Totally lost by the rush, the researcher asks if they're heading straight to the hotel to relax, getting a blunt no in return. The freshman keeps his stiff, bossy posture, warning him they already have a massive list of technical meetings booked for today. Showing zero mercy, he details they are going straight from the airport to the research lab, doing a province tour and wrapping up at the Seoul HQ. Looking at the old guy with his bags, the kid feels a quick flash of pity for dragging an older man into a logistic hell with no brakes. But his drive to fail speaks louder as he remembers he needs to prioritize his own survival and make sure that million-dollar project tanks for good. Faking absolute urgency, the student rudely turns his back and orders the researcher to follow him without stalling. The scientist freezes in place, processing the madness of skipping basic rest and getting thrown right into heavy work the second he touched Korean soil. Eyes wide, the veteran stares at the kid, asking if he's serious about pulling off that brutal schedule today. Keeping up the bad boss act, Sang-yoon fakes feeling bad about the crazy rush and confirms the brutal itinerary with a phony apology. The old man squeezes his hand, clenching his fist tight, feeling a deep, uncontrollable emotion take over his exhausted body. To the freshman's absolute terror, the doctor cracks a massive smile and starts shouting praises about the attitude with a terrifying level of hype. The heir jumps back spooked, totally shook and clueless as to where that positive, vibrant reaction came from. Shouting his praise at the top of his lungs, the scientist radiates a genuine joy that entirely shatters the dark vibe that was planned. Sweating cold with nerves, the MC internally wonders if this hype speech has some hidden meaning he totally missed. The researcher steps up hyped and grabs the kid's shoulders with deep admiration, amazedly asking if the guy can read his mind. Super satisfied with the setup, the old man claims he totally gets that skipping a flashy welcome was just so they wouldn't waste precious time. The genius vents in relief that he absolutely hates those useless ceremonies and boring schedules that just burn whole days in fancy hotels. Wiping a sincere tear, he confesses he's talked to tons of companies over the years, but none showed this level of urgency and technical grit. Pointing his finger with pure hype, the doctor declares the freshman is the one shining exception in this busted market, leaving the kid totally lost. Claiming his old passion for the grind is officially back, the scientist bolts toward the airport exit, telling everyone to pick up the pace. The heir is left standing there looking dumb, unable to believe the athletic speed the older guy just hit in a matter of seconds. Defying all human logic, the newcomer flexes endless, terrifying energy for an older guy who just crossed continents. Instead of making the old man quit from stress, the plan backfires entirely, and the student is the one suffering and exhausted trying to keep up with the insane pace. Throughout the entire marathon tour of the facilities, the doctor flexes his vitality, greeting directors like he just aged backwards a few decades. In the draining alignment meetings, the scientist overflows with flawless vigor and takes technical control of the project like an absolute boss. The logistic torture only ends at 10 at night, with the freshman passing out from pure exhaustion in the backseat of the company car. Melting in invisible tears, Sang-yoon can barely process that his master plan for workplace bullying failed again in the worst way possible. Over the next few days, the national papers plaster the launch of the Sunghyun Group's new tech branch under Dr. Cho's absolute leadership. Financial media hypes up the speedy rollout of the research squads, highlighting the family's fierce billion-dollar entry into the innovation scene. Feeling the heat of the competition, rival core Yongsan and Gyusan scramble to fast-track the construction of their own mass production factories. These two giants historically ruled the top of the national electronics industry, betting everything on the brute force of their massive physical setups. The huge issue is that neither of these rivals had the advanced technical know-how to build original tech from scratch. To avoid getting left behind in the market race, they burned fortunes in total desperation, buying up smaller, fragmented companies. The other humiliating option for the sector was to rely forever on pricey patents and foreign tech just to keep the lights on. However, thanks to the researchers' high-energy arrival, the MC's group skipped years of tech lag and hit the top in one single play. Walking thoughtfully across the college campus, the freshman bitterly accepts that the semiconductor sector grew way too fast and slipped out of his control. He totally gets that trying to sabotage something so massive and vital at this late stage would be absolute corporate and personal suicide. The survival and pride of the entire conglomerate now rely on this project, and one intentional slip-up would leave him completely cut off and on the streets. Beaten by his own traps, the young guy sighs and gives up on causing any drama in the electronics division to avoid drawing his grandpa's wrath. Focusing on actually enjoying his youth, he spots the colorful banners hyping up the university's highly anticipated annual festival. Watching the hyped students gathering in the courtyard, he decides to use that party vibe to cook up a new mental break plan. But his classmate throws ice water on the hype, seriously warning him not to get his hopes up about the local parties. The heir asks confused what the real reason for the low energy is, and his buddy just sighs in frustration at the rich kid's extreme innocence. Doing a signature hand sign, the student asks if the rookie seriously doesn't know the famous legend of the institution's three biggest fools. The kid sarcastically explains the first fool is the poor guy who tries to take the subway thinking the main station is actually near the college. Right after, he rolls his eyes and reveals the second fool is the cocky freshman who brags about being the smartest kid back in high school. Walking across campus, one student points out that anyone taking that festival seriously is a total idiot. His buddy instantly agrees, recalling that last year the whole event was just eating grilled pork and literally nothing else. Catching the chat from afar, Sang-yoon flashes an evil grin, realizing that focusing on the festival would be the ultimate distraction. Inside the classroom during roll call, the MC thinks to himself that he never had a single ounce of interest in those parties. Then the professor calls the heir's name, and he quickly raises his hand, confirming he's there. Right after class, a staffer walks up, dropping the news that the university president wants to grab dinner with the freshmen today. The whole class starts whispering in awe, noticing that such a direct invite from the board has literally never happened before. Cornered by his accidental clout, the kid freaks out internally, begging to be left alone while trying to map out an escape route. Suddenly, he perfectly remembers the famous local legend about the biggest idiots who go to that school. The golden rule on campus says the biggest fool of all is the student who actually tries hard for the college festival. Finding the flawless excuse to trash his own rep, the heir smiles and firmly turns down the board's invite. The school rep takes the rejection a bit awkwardly, but asks for at least one reason for him bailing. With zero shame, the MC announces he is insanely busy organizing the university's festivities. Instantly, the whole room goes into shock, unable to believe the class genius is wasting his time on something so pointless. Walking away totally satisfied, the young guy mentally declares he won't stand for the terrible rep of that annual event anymore. Flexing some fake ambition, the freshman swears he's taking total control and completely revamping everything about the celebration. Far from there, the vibe is super lively in a famous traditional alley known for slinging pork rice soup. The main dish hits the table with a promise that extra portions are on the house for anyone who brings a +1. The hot meal looks insane as the tender pieces of meat are carefully lifted by chopsticks. Enjoying the food, reporter Won Dongshik hypes up the dish, claiming he travels all the way there just to eat that. His coworker agrees and casually mentions the journalist's phone is ringing. Grabbing his cell in a slight rush, the man wonders if it's an urgent call from the editor-in-chief. Keeping it professional, he answers the call introducing himself as the city's financial reporter. On the other end, the billionaire student greets his old gossip buddy with tons of charm. Recognizing the voice instantly, the journalist's eyes go wide, completely surprised by the random check-in. Dropping his spoon, the man shifts into serious mode and asks what the big scoop is this time. Hyped by the promise of a killer story, Dongshik jumps up from the table, rushing the kid to spill everything he knows. The heir reveals the massive Sunghyun group is fully sponsoring the university festival, leaving the listener super let down. The reporter claps back, bummed, arguing that a little college party should only be news for the campus paper. Tossing out the perfect bait, Sang-yoon name-drops the country's top 3 singers, sending the reporter into a state of absolute shock. The journalist presses hard, wanting to know if the legendary musical trio is 100% locked in for the event. The kid laughs, admitting he still needs to hustle to get the contracts signed, leaving the guy on the phone panicking. Sweating cold with nerves, the reporter warns it's impossible to run a story without the contracts being officially signed. Even though he thinks the idea is pure madness, the media pro caves and writes down all the details of the scam. The next day, the bombshell headline is plastered on the paper's front page, promising the biggest concert in academic history. The setup was flawless, using the weight of the billion-dollar corp to validate a rumor the heir completely made up. With a look packed with pure evil satisfaction, the MC celebrates that the chaos he unleashed can't be undone. Later, chilling in his luxury room, Assistant Lee tries to keep up with the day's studies with the materials in hand. Confused by the recent gossip, the suit holds up the newspaper and asks what the real motive is behind that crazy stunt. The staffer swears absolute loyalty to the young master, but admits he can't find a single drop of logic in that strategy. Desperate, the tutor points out it's a rookie strategic mistake to leak a massive rumor to the press before even talking to the singers. Relaxed on his bed, the freshman invents a smooth excuse, saying building massive hype maximizes everyone's engagement. The student keeps lying with total conviction, claiming this media spotlight will do wonders for the group's corporate image. The assistant bites his lip in terror, warning that if the hiring falls through, the company will get publicly clowned and the old boss is going to lose it. Changing the subject fast, the kid innocently asks if his feared grandpa landed safely in Germany yet. Far from there, the map shows the family leader decided to take a random international business trip to Germany. At the airport, the stubborn grandpa was yelling at his exec squad, demanding to check out the overseas ops with his own eyes. Knowing the big boss is MIA, the freshman celebrates that he's running the show now, swearing the old man will be proud of this mess. Keeping his focused air mask on, he preaches that a good student needs to know when to hit the books and when to hit the party. Analyzing the young guy's fake speech, the assistant's look darkens as he realizes the real trap being set. In the employee's logic, the ruthless tycoon has zero clue who those singers are and absolutely hates pointless parties. The suit figures failing to hire them doesn't matter, because the actual goal is just to let the ridiculous rumor spread like wildfire. Terrified, Lee pictures the gossip crossing the globe and reaching the feared chairman's ears right in the middle of his business trip. In his dark fantasy, the grandpa orders the kid to be kicked out immediately after finding out he used the company's name to play party planner. Totally pale, the man figures that is the exact tragic fate waiting for the young master if things go sideways. Spooked by the tutor's panic face, the MC wonders if he went a little too hard on the crazy juice this time. Trying to escape the heavy vibe, the staffer quickly announces he's going to check out the event venue on campus. But the kid cuts him off, ordering him to personally take on the mission of recruiting the musicians using the corporation's name. Hiding his laziness, the heir claims he'd love to handle the negotiations himself, but his heavy study routine won't let him help out. With a manipulative grin, Sang-yoon argues the talent agencies will feel super honored dealing directly with the secretariat. Completely sketchy about it, the assistant warns that using the group's official clout without the board's green light is way too dangerous. Refusing to take no for an answer, the freshman firmly rests his hand on the terrified employee's shoulder to hype him up. Using his sharp, smooth talk, the college guy declares external tasks are the exclusive job of the suit squad. The student radiates a glowing aura and hypes the pro up, calling him a true superstar of corporate admin. Turning his back to the lost guy, the heir leaves the room, dropping the bomb that the deadline to lock in the contracts is only 1 week. Smiling before closing the door, he wishes tons of luck to the tutor who just got handed a literal ticking time bomb. Left entirely alone and frozen in the middle of the room, the employee gulps, realizing the suicide mission he just accepted. Walking down the mansion's halls, the MC flashes an evil grin, praying the embarrassing news spreads fast. By the very next day, the kid's aunt already has the paper in her hands, questioning her rookie nephew's party boy vibe. Her personal secretary bows respectfully, confirming the ridiculous article was indeed the freshman's doing. Super satisfied with her academic rival's flop, the elegant lady points out this behavior is totally bizarre and a bad look for the family. Wanting to throw gas on the fire, she puts away her makeup and orders her team to make an urgent call. Soon enough, the gossip does a full lap around the top tier and reaches the grumpy uncle, who refuses to take the bait, saying he won't snitch to the patriarch. With zero patience for his greedy siblings' toxicity, the division president aggressively ends the call. Pulling the phone away from his ear, the veteran takes a deep breath, huffing with anger over that childish power struggle. Hanging up the phone in his office, Uncle Seung-yi sarcastically praises his freshman nephew's cunning. With a totally calculated look, the man realizes the rookie knows exactly how to manipulate the game in his favor. On the desk, the paper is already blasting the headline that the billionaire group locked in the 3 biggest music stars for the festival. At the company's commercial branch HQ, the corporate vibe seems chill while the gossip runs wild across the floor. The uncle's phone rings again, confirming the ridiculous rumors are taking over the media at lightspeed. Picking up, Seung-yi promises to handle the issue personally, super pleased to see the trap set. Meanwhile, the stressed assistant tries to set up the tech expo, terrified the young master's plan will go horribly wrong. The company's electronics booth is just showing off basic fans and washing machines in a super dead setup. Far away, the International Expo is kicking off in Germany, bringing the world's biggest tech brands together in one spot. Checking his own pavilion, the electronics division president reviews his clipboard, completely zoned in on the boring work. But the veteran's focus is brutally shattered when he hears his name called, making him jump out of his skin with pure nerves. Flexing his ruthless vibe, the family patriarch demands to know the quality of the division's booth and orders the employee to lead the way. Arriving at the branch's reserved spot, the scene is a total ghost town, tucked away in a dark, forgotten corner of the event. The top boss's face instantly twists, with pure hate seeing that pathetic display in front of their global rivals. Later that night, inside the massive German hotel, a furious scream echoes down the halls calling for the division president. The executive gulps and answers the call immediately, terrified he's going to be fired on the spot. Pointing his finger with rage, the grandpa demands to know why their booth was covered in dust and hidden from everyone's sight. Crushing a colorful flyer in his hand, the tycoon yells, asking if the employee didn't see how much better the foreign companies looked. The leader screams they should have at least met the rivals halfway, warning that their mediocre effort embarrasses the entire nation. Completely cornered by the crushing pressure, President Lim bows, offering sincere apologies for the international flop. Showing no mercy, the patriarch throws the papers right at the guy's face and tells him to quit if the only thing he knows how to do is apologize. Lowering his voice, the old man asks bitterly how they plan to challenge the giant semiconductor market when they're acting this useless. Sinking into the hotel sofa, the manager grumbles that he'd never have discovered that disgrace if he just stayed comfy at the Seoul HQ. Right then, the assistant steps into the room carefully to announce an incoming direct call from South Korea for the boss. The head of the secretariat respectfully reveals the caller is President Seung-yi, waiting for the green light to transfer it. The leader finds it weird for his second son to call at such an odd hour and asks, worried, if some emergency went down with the companies. Shutting the door, the grandpa demands total privacy while the assistant steps out, wishing the old boss a good rest. Over the speakerphone, the MC's uncle introduces himself with full formalities, asking if the business trip is going well. Losing patience instantly, the top boss tells his son to drop the useless act and spit out what the actual problem is. Using a completely fake tone, Seung-yi reports the rookie has been causing massive chaos while the leader is away. Hearing his prodigy grandson's name tied to some drama, the grandpa's eyes widen with curiosity right away. The uncle spills that the kid made a massive scene promising to hire the biggest stars in the country, leaving the patriarch confused by the info. Seung-yi snitches that the freshman is using the corporation's sacred name to bully entertainment agencies focused on shallow youth stuff. Making the gossip sound worse, he paints a picture of the student screaming in the middle of class that he flipped the whole festival upside down. Super cocky about his dirty tactic, the greedy relative starts preaching that this behavior is a total embarrassment for the family. But the grandpa cuts the rant off fast, demanding his son repeat the exact promise the kid made about changing everything. Caught off guard by the sudden fixation, the uncle firmly confirms the boy promised to completely revamp the event. Trying to get back to his smear campaign, the exec insists that using corporate muscle to hire mere singers crossed all the lines. Evaluating the situation with a sharp look, the tycoon just gives a vague nod, leaving the snitch totally clueless about the vibe. Staring at the rival's flyer on the table, the president connects the dots, deciding to teach the market a brutal lesson. But the very next second, the leader switches his tone and orders absolutely every top-tier executive in the group to fly to Germany the next day. To the snitch's absolute shock, the patriarch screams that he needs to get on the first flight to Frankfurt too, no excuses. Seung-yi freezes holding the phone in his office, completely paralyzed and unable to grasp how his gossip turned into an emergency draft. Panic takes over the relative as he drops the phone and freaks out, realizing his plan to take down his nephew just spiraled totally out of control. Arriving completely out of breath at the German hotel the next day, Seung-yi rests his hands on his knees, desperately asking if he's late. The director guarding the door calmly replies the leader just got there, and the tense meeting has already officially started. Shock washes over the greedy uncle's face as he realizes the massive corporate hole he just threw himself into. Furious at the blockade, he points his finger demanding to go in right now, but the staffer blocks the door, bringing up the patriarch's lethal temper. Reality hits the executive hard, his eyes going wide as he understands he is officially locked out of the biggest event of the year. The security guy keeps his face completely blank and stone cold, refusing to budge a single inch despite the rejected son's tantrum. Left totally stranded on an isolated bench in the hallway, the heir curses his luck, suffering the humiliation of flying all that way for nothing. Inside, the massive conference table holds the group's elite, who loudly thank the boss for the chance to hear him speak. Rubbing his temples, annoyed by the kissing up, the grand leader tells everyone to shut up and lower their voices. Switching back to his lethal focus, the old man emphasizes the conglomerate's goals are no longer stuck inside their own country's borders. Slamming the pathetic performance report, he decrees the vital mission now is to crush the competition across the entire globe. The tycoon shifts targets out of nowhere, harshly asking if anyone in the room actually gets the real reason they are focusing on semiconductors. The oppressive tension crushes the boardroom, leaving all the powerful directors in dead silence, sweating bullets. With zero patience for cowards, the grandpa fires off the kid's Aunt Hyun-hee's name in a super intimidating tone. The woman jumps violently in her chair, terrified she just became the new punching bag for this brutal interrogation. Flashing back to the hotel room, the tycoon hung up, kicking his snitching son to the curb with zero mercy. The phone hit the hook with a heavy thud, sealing the fail of the uncle's cheap strategy early in the night. Not wasting time on dumb drama, the patriarch immediately called for his trusted right-hand man to make moves fast. The dedicated staffer popped through the door instantly, promising to be at the big boss's absolute disposal. Pacing the luxury room with his hands behind his back, the old man asked if the assistant heard the garbage spoken over the phone. Jotting down tasks in his notebook, the secretary promised to set up the emergency meeting for the next day with absolute precision. Taking advantage of the boss's good mood, the suit carefully asked what the young master really meant by all that. An almost demonic smile of pure pride took over the grandpa's face, hyped to have an air so manipulative and sharp. The old man concluded the kid wasn't talking about a festival at all, but was actually promising to completely overhaul the stiff corporate structure. Riding the visionary hype, the president yelled that this brutal boldness is exactly the fuel the group needs to win overseas. Radiating a glowing aura of approval, the patriarch credited the student with making him see the company's new path to global domination. To make the circus perfect, the tycoon ordered the immediate hiring of the $1 million band, funding the show just so his grandson could come out on top. A few days later, the college campus turns into a literal sea of crazy students, waiting for the family-sponsored event to kick off. On the blindingly lit stage, the rock star runs the show, delivering an unforgettable, top-tier performance. Watching the miracle he actively tried to ruin, Sang-yoon is shook, demanding to know from his assistant how that insane concert ended up at his college. The assistant lets out a confident laugh, asking if the young master seriously forgot who he is dealing with. Pointing at his own chest, the staffer brags, reminding him he is the top ace of the secretariat, leaving the college kid feeling a bit awkward. Then he admits he was just joking and actually got dizzy because the agencies were practically begging to close the deal, making the guy question his tutor's new funny phase. The suit reports that on the phone, the managers sounded super nervous and desperate for the chance to put their artists on that stage. Hearing that detail, Sang-yoon's face changes instantly, deducing someone incredibly powerful definitely put pressure on the entire industry. The image of the ruthless patriarch pops into his head, but the student quickly waves his hands, dismissing the crazy idea. Shifting his focus back to the wild crowd, he concludes the reason doesn't matter, as long as a chunk of the company's fortune got torched right there. In the heir's mind, the plan is still flawless, picturing the old leader foaming at the mouth reading the paper about the massive financial loss caused by a festival. Super satisfied with his own trap, the freshman cheers inside, telling all the college kids to enjoy the party to the max. Far away from all this campus hype, the scene shifts to a cold, imposing setup in Frankfurt, Germany. Inside a luxury conference room, the group's corporate elite wait in dead silence around a massive table. The vibe is super heavy on the directors, who sit stiff as boards, sweating cold from the incoming tension. Nobody dares to speak a single word, just waiting for the start of the moment every company leader fears most. The clock on the wall hits exactly noon, marking the exact time for the meetup. Then the main door's handle slowly starts turning, shattering the room's suspense. The almighty president walks into the room with heavy steps, radiating crushing authority. Showing zero emotion, the patriarch takes his rightful spot at the head of the table. He settles into the heavy armchair, ready to kick off the corporate massacre. A sharp, furious glare scans the room, making it crystal clear nobody is getting out of this evaluation without a scratch. Time moves relentlessly, officially starting the dreaded grilling session. Firing the first hit, the tycoon asks the kid's aunt the real reason the company is investing in semiconductors, leaving the woman stuttering in terror. The executive tries to give a rehearsed, technical answer, claiming this tech is the future of the new century. Totally out of patience, the leader screams, cutting off the useless explanation and demanding some actual vision. Shaken by the deafening yell, she drops her gaze, completely defeated and out of words. Rubbing his own forehead, the old man complains that directors with decades of experience can't even touch the mindset of a 20-year-old college kid. Hyping up the genius grandson, the grandpa preaches that way beyond the money, the real goal is having the guts to challenge the impossible and change the entire core of the corporation. Snapping back to his intimidating stance, He asks if this bunch of cowards even knows exactly what the freshman's revolutionary statement was. Violently slamming his fists on the table, the boss repeats the kid's supposed order, demanding the company change absolutely everything except its name, expecting that same drive from the team. Cornered by the leader's rage, the whole board of directors bows their heads, swearing instant obedience. At the edge of the table, the employees whisper to each other, totally spooked, trying to confirm the order they just got. The patriarch flashes a smirk and warns that changing everything doesn't mean they should swap out their wives or kids, making a sarcastic joke out of the obvious. In response, the subordinates bow deeply, confirming they got the threatening message loud and clear. Focusing on the details, the camera catches the suit of an employee silently watching the whole thing go down. The guy's hand secretly works a device under the table, far away from the boss's eyes. The glow from the phone screen confirms the entire grilling session was just secretly recorded. Back in Korea, inside the luxury ride, Sang-yoon holds the device after listening to the audio of the chaos from the Germany meeting. Tutor Lee Baem-seok explains he got the golden file through a senior contact in the secretariat, earning a direct compliment from his boss. The staffer complains the recording has a ton of static, making it hard to catch every exact word the old man was screaming. Showing a purely relieved smile, the college guy promises the noise doesn't matter because the most crucial words were crystal clear. In the kid's head, the quote about changing everything except the family hits like the most beautiful sentence ever. He quickly figures the grandpa is declaring war on the company's leeches, promising to mercilessly crush anyone who doesn't prove their worth. Analyzing his own spot on the family tree, the heir gets hyped realizing he's just a grandson and not a direct son, making him 100% sure he can be tossed aside at any second. Reaching their destination early in the evening, the car pulls up to the massive, ultramodern semiconductor research complex. Walking down the bright, futuristic hallway, the student greets Dr. Cho with top-tier manners. The scientist smiles back, radiating good vibes, while the freshman notes the construction has already hit its final phase with zero hiccups. The researcher admits he's super grateful for the visit, knowing the young master carved time out of his brutal schedule to check the site personally. With dark eyes and a sarcastic grin, Sang-yoon thinks he's only there to leave a solid final impression, fully expecting to get fired the second the tycoon gets back. Suddenly stopping in his tracks, the veteran says he has a very important topic to discuss before it's too late. Keeping a straight face, the scientist drops a golden tip about a whole new world, promising the kid's visionary mind is going to love the idea. Totally caught off guard by the mystery, the student repeats the phrase about this new world, not getting where the chat is heading. Standing in the middle of the empty hall, Dr. Cho straight up asks if the heir has ever heard of a new piece of tech called the internet. Time jumps to the exact moment the feared patriarch steps back onto Korean soil after his long trip, summoning his grandson to a traditional restaurant that night. In the freshman's mind, the invite has a very obvious reason, remembering that while the old man was grinding in Europe, he torched a family fortune throwing a college party. Reaching the door of the private room, the guy is greeted by a suited security guard who confirms the big leader is inside. With a confident smile forming on his face, the MC takes a deep breath, feeling like it's finally time to reap the rewards of his sabotage. He respectfully greets the old man, but inside he's celebrating, practically feeling the keys to his dream consolation building drop into his hands. The tycoon tells him to sit and starts pouring drinks, casually making small talk about how busy the grandson has been lately. Beating the perfect storm to the punch, the student drops his head looking sorry and drops a preemptive apology to justify his own flop. Shattering every expectation, the president flashes a huge, gentle smile, asking why he's apologizing and praising the massive success of the operations. The heir's cool instantly shatters, getting super confused and asking what the heck his grandpa means by saying he already heard all about the situation. In a great mood, the old patriarch laughs, revealing he found out about the kid's famous quote regarding changing everything but the name. Sipping his drink calmly, the leader admits he used that exact same philosophy from his grandson to put the useless directors in Germany in their place. The freshman's brain short-circuits realizing the legendary overseas lecture was entirely based on the stupid excuse he made up in class. Remembering the static-filled audio of the meeting, he finally decodes what the muffled words were, realizing in absolute horror that his grandpa was using him as the ultimate example of leadership. Finding it hilarious, the tycoon praises the insane hustle of calling the papers just to flip a party, making the boy accept that he's definitely not getting in trouble. Grabbing his own hair in despair, Sang-yoon begs for forgiveness, arguing he threw the company's money in the trash playing party planner instead of hitting the books. The almighty boss aggressively cuts off the whining, stating that library nerds aren't meant to rule the world and that a real leader needs to know how to make some noise. Feeling his world turn upside down, the college guy tries to hide his sadness, claiming he just got super lucky booking the singers for the event. Taking another solid sip of his hot drink, the veteran president writes off any luck, pointing out that money alone doesn't buy the country's top 3 stars. The old man reveals he pulled some strings himself, giving a little nudge to the broadcast directors so they'd send the artists crawling to the grandson's stay. The final puzzle piece clicks in the MC's head, confirming his suspicion that the board's heavy hand was behind that contract miracle all along. Head down, he suffers as he calls the festival plan dead, realizing that if he keeps this up, becoming the conglomerate's successor is going to be his inevitable fate. But a sinister glow takes over the heir's eyes again, remembering he had already triggered a safety protocol for extreme emergencies. Getting his confident posture back at the table, the student grabs the tycoon's attention, claiming he has an incredibly urgent matter to share. Cheeks red and radiating anticipation, the grandpa smiles, pumped up and ready to hear the next ridiculously genius idea from his favorite grandson. Taking advantage of the chill vibe, the heir reveals he discovered a new business venture while the old man was out in Europe. The family president shows heavy curiosity and asks what it's all about right away. No beating around the bush, Sang-yoon asks if the tycoon has ever heard of something called the internet. The revolutionary tech focuses on connecting the whole world quickly and efficiently. The massive game changer is allowing real-time, two-way communication between places that are crazy far apart. Originally based on a military comms system, the core idea was to keep the Defense Department secure. Even though its current use is locked down, the day this tech gets released to the public is getting closer by the minute. The freshman explains Dr. Cho brought up this new wave during the semiconductor factory tour. The scientist warned they need to jump into this sector before it's too late for the company. During the chat, the researcher mentioned an electronic computing professor from the kids' university. The contact was trying to score funding to build a research network, but seriously doubted the group would back the idea. After processing that info, the MC spent the entire night fixated only on this random topic. He figures investing in this is pure madness in an era where fax machines still rule the market. However, that total lack of guarantee is exactly what draws him in, seeing it as the ultimate chance to throw cash down the drain. In the student's mind, combining this crazy investment with the festival's massive bills will be the ultimate insurance policy for his failure. Determined to launch the plan, the college kid orders the assistant to change routes and head straight to campus. Soon enough, the duo is walking down the ghost town hallways of the computing department. Standing outside a room, the freshman knocks on the door, politely asking if the professor is around. Dead silence fills the hallway, with zero response coming from inside. The suit guesses the office is empty, but the guy double-checks the nameplate and finds it weird the door is cracked open. Without overthinking it, the young master turns the knob and realizes the door was just unlocked. The scene inside is a terrifying mess, with a guy completely glued to a glowing screen. Looking at the guy's awful state, the staffer figures this dude is the exact opposite of Dr. Cho's refined vibe. Keeping it formal, the heir greets the researcher in a friendly way. Without even turning his head, the academic rudely snaps that he doesn't need anything and tells the visitors to get lost. Ignoring the toxic welcome, Sang-yoon plays his card, stating he was sent by the veteran scientist. Instantly, the man spins his chair in shock, recognizing the rookie as the rich heir who funded the new lab. Totally anxious, the professor asks if the billionaire family is planning to dump money into his research too. The student coughs to hide his surprise at the guy's sudden hype, remembering that companies only move when there's clear profit on the table. Hearing the question about financial returns, the educator looks completely offended, acting like the word itself is absurd. The hyper-academic explains that investing in this is buying into the exact same madness the US military funds, meaning there's zero promise of quick cash. Trying to stick to the practical side, the freshman asks what the big prize would be if they actually managed to pull off this crazy project. Proudly holding up 2 fingers, the professor declares they'll grab the number 2 spot in the world for this project. Disappointment hits the college kid's face as he repeats the ranking, finding the answer utterly pathetic. Right then, his grandpa's commanding voice echoes in his memory, reminding him that the top of the podium only has room for one winner. Looking around the professor's setup, the kid is absolutely sure the family leadership would trash the silver medal. Trying to tank the pitch even more, the heir presses to know how long the sketchy development would take. Looking stressed, the researcher admits that absolutely nothing can be guaranteed in such an early-stage market. Hearing the confirmation of a total financial black hole, the student soaks in the academic's beautiful lack of business sense. Pushing a bit more, the college guy highlights the fact that winning only gets them a mediocre spot in world history. The number 2 symbol shines in the chat like a certified stamp of incoming failure, sealing the perfect disaster investment. Keeping up the act, the heir pretends to be mind-blown by such a low goal for a dream that demands rivers of cash. The patriarch's ruthless image pops back into his head, confirming the group would never settle for tech scraps. With no room for second place, the freshman's strategy hits max power against the family's demand for perfection. The young guy remembers the total lack of deadlines the researcher confirmed, nailing the coffin shut on this useless business plan. The sketchy answer about guarantees hangs in the air, completing the ultimate combo to destroy any economic viability. Behind the heir, the assistant stands completely stunned, shook by the totally aimless and senseless academic pit. Internally, the freshman lists the project's flaws, hyping up the expensive madness, the endless timeline, and the awful second-place finish. A glowing aura of victory surrounds the kid, thrilled to have found the ultimate flop to balance out his accidental wins. Wasting no time, the young master agrees to the partnership, promising the company will fund absolutely everything the researcher asks for. Flashing back to the present at the fancy dinner, the family leader drinks his tea, processing the pitch to invest in this so-called internet. Keeping up the hero act, Sang-yoon warns that the success rate is super low and the cost is astronomical, but claims it's worth it for the future. The old tycoon rests his chin on his hand, thinking deeply about the massive pile of cash that would go up in smoke. From the corner of his eye, the college kid figures an unknown, crazy expensive tech is definitely going to piss the president off. Closing his eyes and flashing an internal smile, the student feels like there's no escape from failing this time. But the patriarch breaks the tense vibe with a friendly laugh, finding the boy's audacity hilarious. Despair takes over the MC's soul, silently crying as he tries to figure out why the reaction was positive again. Laughing across the table, the grandpa proudly points out his youngest grandson's ruthless business vision. The kid starts sweating cold hearing the old man praise him for hunting down new tech, while still staying locked in on the semiconductors. Absolutely amazed, the veteran president praises the guy's hustle, who politely says thanks while tasting the bitter flavor of defeat. Rage eats the freshman alive inside, unable to believe he scored even more praise instead of getting the sweet release of being fired. Riding the hype, the tycoon snaps his fingers for the head of the secretariat, who jumps to attention immediately. The patriarch orders the instant creation of a brand new task force dedicated strictly to computer communications, running under the electronics division. Without blinking, the suited employee confirms the order, while the heir goes into shock watching a massive new branch get born because of him. Raising his small glass, the great leader shows off an excellent mood and demands a toast to celebrate them. Sadly sipping his drink, the student regrets that his escape attempts only buried him under even more heavy corporate work. The guy's defeated reflection at the bottom of the glass shows the silent sadness of someone tasting the bitter sweetness of yet another failed plan. Days later, the massive, modern commercial building hosts the 20th meeting of the South Korean Federation of Industries. In the huge boardroom, one of the leaders points out that the MC's family jumped way too late into a market already controlled by rival brands. The president of the Geosan conglomerate jumps up from his chair huffing with anger, accusing Sunghyun of trying to steal not just semiconductors, but computers too. Slamming his hand on the table, the veteran calls the rival's greedy attitude a massive violation of business ethics. Masking his toxicity with a smile, another exec sarcastically notes, "There's no need to get heated in such a civilized setting." Meanwhile, the ruthless President Park of the Jeongseon group drops a threat, claiming the rivals got too greedy and didn't know when to stop. One of the rich alliance members stirs the pot, trying to get the board's leadership to back them against the heir's family. Keeping a chill face and a diplomatic smile, the Federation president agrees with the complaints and offers to pitch an idea to squash the beef. Keeping things diplomatic at the meeting, the Federation president agrees to hear the pitch meant to chill everyone out. Right then, the heir reflects that all of this kicked off just because he mentioned internet comms while grabbing drinks with his grandpa. The idea ended up leaking to the media, and soon the papers were spreading the rumor that the freshman was the mastermind behind this aggressive company expansion. Shocked by the blow-up, the college kid regrets not realizing a fake story would spiral out of control and take over the market like that. Because of all this drama, the rival family's leader had to call an emergency meeting at the Federation to try and block their move. Historically, the massive conglomerates kept a sacred, unspoken rule to never invade each other's business turf. But since Sunghyun broke the pact by snatching up semiconductors and computers, chaos broke loose and dragged everyone into that conference room. Sitting at the table, Sang-yoon catches the shady comment about a certain young guy rushing the business and quickly figures he's the target. The meeting's mediator confirms everyone's fears that the market is shifting way too fast because of impulsive moves. With that, the president explains he called the grandsons from the Jeongseon and Jeosan families exactly to debate with the future pillars of these corporations. The man points out that one day these young guys will be the big bosses running their family empires. Flashing a friendly smile, the mediator reveals the goal is to test if this new generation actually has what it takes to run the show. So it doesn't look like a targeted attack on just one heir. The veteran announces he'll ask every rookie the exact same question. With a sharp glare, the Federation leader asks if President Park is cool with this evaluation format. The rival exec swallows hard and agrees, having no way out, while the mediator calms the boys down saying it's a simple question. Kicking off the test, the mediator calls up Heir Yahello from the Jeongsang group first, who stands up looking super tense. Caught off guard by the random call-out, the guy stutters, awkwardly confirming he's there. The Federation president gets straight to the point, mentioning that the Daewon group also handed the government a semiconductor plant. The old man highlights that this new rival even set up a branch in California, looking to test the rookies' market knowledge. Given Sunghyun's market invasions, the mediator asks how the kid sees the landscape shifting if Daewon also jumps into the brawl. Completely lost, Yahello tries to bluff, saying that adding more rivals would grow the market and be great for the country. Burning with second-hand embarrassment over the pathetic answer, President Park tells his own grandson to shut up and sit down immediately. Taking the L, the young heir follows orders and drops back into his chair under the judging stares of the room. The Jeongsang leader facepalms, furious and disgusted by the kid's stupidity for dropping such a hollow answer. Moving to the next target, the mediator calls up Heir Young-hoon, who tries to act tough, accusing Sunghyun of wrecking the market order. But the Federation president shuts down the edgy speech, reminding him he asked for a market analysis, not a whiny complaint. Watching his peers crash and burn, Sang-yoon just can't figure out why they're struggling so hard with such a basic question. The Jeosan rep pouts after getting scolded, exposing a total lack of prep for that hardcore business environment. Suddenly, a genius realization hits the freshman's brain, and his eyes go wide as he cracks the code. The MC figures those two rookies share the exact same dream he does, wanting to fail on purpose just to score a building and live the easy life. Reaching the final showdown, the mediator turns his focus to Sang-yoon and demands his take on the market scenario. The boy nods that he's ready to speak, while internally giving a standing ovation to the other heir's flawless acting as complete incompetence. Amazed, the freshman thinks about the sheer guts it takes to fake being dumb in front of such a terrifying corporate crowd. With tears of emotion in his eyes, the student respects his rivals as true masters in the art of dodging corporate responsibility. In the MC's twisted logic, the real winner of this grilling session is whoever manages to lock down a commercial building to live off the rent. On the flip side, the unlucky loser will get slapped with the conglomerate presidency, buried under mountains of work until they die. Noticing the delay, the old mediator asks if the kid is just going to stay quiet, but the heir quickly promises he'll answer. The Federation president shoots an intimidating look, warning that the fate of the entire meeting rests on the rookie's answer. Feeling like it's finally his time to shine by failing, the college kid stands up, swearing to drop the absolute worst answer possible. Bursting with confidence, Sang-yoon declares it would be way more profitable for the newcomer Daewon to just stay completely out of this war. He argues the three giants already have established factories or research hubs, while the new rival would have to start from absolute scratch. The old man smirks, mocking that none of them have mastered advanced tech yet, and asks if Daewon couldn't just throw money at the problem to catch up. Faking arrogance, the boy agrees about the cash, but claims it would be a massive waste of sunk cost to invest in that right now. The leader's eyes widen slightly, surprised to hear such a specific financial term coming out of a student's mouth. To wrap up his freak show, the freshman suggests Daewon should just wait for the war to end and buy Jeongsang's or Jeosan's divisions for pennies when they go bankrupt. Instantly, President Park erupts with rage at the table, utterly shook by the brat's nerve to predict his company's bankruptcy. Flashing an innocent smile, the heir just adds that there's no need to burn rivers of cash building something from scratch when you can just buy it cheap later. Instead of thinking the answer is pure madness, the old Federation leader flashes a satisfied smile, incredibly impressed by the kid's ruthless business vision.